Okay, and we're rolling. How's it going, guys? MN5102 here, and I'm back with another live stream. Now, this live stream is pretty much new because this is a Let's Watch live stream. And we're going to watch How to Build a Hand and Rod Puppet Part 1 Understructure by B.J. Geyer, Master Puppeteer and Puppet Builder by Stan Winston School of Character Arts. Now, this is a free part tutorial. This is the first part, which are, and the chapter highlights, the chapter highlights, which include materials, patterning the mouth plate, cutting and gluing the felt, thumb and finger rings, working with different types of foam, puppet hand design, building a hand armature, making the rubber palm pattern, constructing the arm rod pocket, carving the foam hands, gluing in the hand armature, rounding the edges, making the arm tube, and connecting the hand and arm. So yeah, let's put this bad baby in and start learning how to build a hand and rod puppet. So look, there's the DVD. Okay, the DVD's in the Xbox. What? Huh? What's wrong? We're having trouble reading this. Make sure it's a Blu-ray or... But it is a DVD! It's not a game! Of course it's a DVD! Okay guys, for some reason the DVD won't play. I'm gonna try again. Are you kidding me? It's never done that before. What? It's not even from a different region. Okay, guys. Let me put the DVD back in the case for a bit. I don't want it to get scratched. Gotta move this tripod. Don't you okay, guys, change of plan. Since I'm having a little... Since the Xbox isn't playing the DVD for an unknown reason, I'm going to put the DVD into my computer DVD drive instead. Wait, no. Wait, no, that's the edge. Oh, God. See, look, right here. Yeah, I got this for my birthday. And I'm going to put it in. That disc looks beautiful. All right. All right. Now then, before we start, I just want to let you guys know I do not own the rights to this movie. This movie is owned by Stan Winston School of Character Arts. So, I do not intend to get a copyright strike. So, play the disc. Hold on. It's never done... Wait, what's going on here? It's never done that before. Of course it's a DVD! I don't believe this! There's pretty much a DVD inside the player! See, look guys, it says DVD at the bottom. And for some reason it won't play. Okay. Oh, for goodness sake. This is a... God, it's a DVD. I know it is. God, that's all you gotta do. God, it's not even a video file. It's a DVD. That's all you gotta do. Play the DVD and everything will be fine. Okay guys, for some reason the DVD won't play. God, it's not even from a different region. God. No, I'm not screen recording. I'm trying to play the DVD. Why is it still not playing? Insert. Wait, huh? What the? Please insert a writable disc into. Why is it saying that this disc isn't writable? Of course. I put DVDs in before and it never said that. It never said anything about the DVD not being writable. Of course it is. That's it. God, this is really starting to test my patience. I just want to learn how to make a hand and rod puppet. That's all I got. That's all I want to do. The DVD's not from another region. It is made here in America, and now and now something is preventing it from playing. God. Yeah, Cinco de Mayo is tomorrow. I better check Chat GPT, because something's not right here. It's like something's preventing this DVD from playing. I ordered a DVD called How to Build a Hand and Rod Puppet Part 1 Understructure by Stan Winston School of Character Arts. But for some reason, when I put the DVD in my Xbox One, it's saying we're having trouble reading the disc. And then I put it in my computer. Well, it's not desk, it's disc. But nothing happened. When I hit play disc, the files open up, and I have to select the folder, but then a pop-up appeared, and it said, please insert a writable disc. It's disc. And it never did that to me before. The disc is not even from another country. It was made right here in America. The disc is not a standard video DVD like a movie, but a data DVD? What? DVDs don't contain files! That's not possible! You know what? I've got a better idea. I did that. I already did that. Wait. VLC Media Player. That's not even possible! There is clearly a DVD inside! I played DVDs like this before, and it worked all the time! They're not supposed to be not readable! In fact, I looked at the disc, and it's not even damaged! Wait. The disc is spinning inside. Wait. But, God, it's just not fair for... God, what is going on here? Wait. DVD... Yeah. Well, guys, I don't know if I'm ever gonna play this DVD, cause it's saying the DVD won't play, and I don't know what to do. DVDs are never supposed to do stuff like that. I'm talking to myself. Not now, Noah. I'm doing a live stream. Okay, I'll get you one. Here you go. Okay, I'm looking at the disc right now. Okay, look at the disc. It doesn't look scratched or damaged. What the heck is going on here? DVDs are never... God, no. In you go! Okay, guys, looks like I'll have to download VLC Media Player. God, it won't... Oh, better turn off the camera. It's English. Okay. Okay, finish. Okay, there we go. All right, and the disc is playing. Looks like all I had to do was download VLC Media Player. So let's look at the chapters. Okay, see how you got start, materials, patterning the mouth plate, cutting and gluing on the felt, taping up the back, making the thumb and finger rings, and oh boy. Back to main menu. Okay, let's play all. I thought I was never gonna get this DVD to play. Okay, it's starting now. It's starting.
Good morning, everybody. We are here with BJ Geyer for the first day of 3 days of hand and rod puppet making.
That's right. That's right.
Welcome, dude.
Thanks, guys.
Oh,
We're very
yeah.
excited for this. I'll speak for myself. I'm a huge fan of Henson and all things hand puppet, not just Henson, including BJ Geyer here. You've seen his stuff in Crank Yankers and tons of stuff for Legacy.
Hey, Crank
I just
Yankers.
love it, and we've never done anything like this.
Nice.
We do things with silicone, and
Yep.
and we don't do a lot of things with felt.
So I get to be a first.
Yes, you do. And I know you're all very excited. This has been a very popular course, lots of sign-ups, and we've had 3 full days of puppet building with you over the next few weeks.
Absolutely.
I'm going to turn it over to you, and you can sort of give people a little overview of the course, and then we're going to meet your live students. You're going to have 4 live students during this course who are going to be, who you'll see on screen and give critique to, and we're going to meet them up top.
Great.
But for now, I'm walking out, and we're very happy to have you.
Thanks,
BJ.
sir. Thank you
All
much.
right, BJ Geyer.
Thanks, guys. So, hi everybody. My name is BJ Geyer.
Hello, BJ
I've
Geyer.
been working, building puppets and puppeteering for about 25 years now.
Oh, that's
in the
good
film
for
and television
you,
industry.
BJ.
Worked for Disney, Nickelodeon, Comedy Central, various shows like they were talking about.
Wait,
Primarily,
like
my
Mr.
style was
Meaty?
hand and rod puppets, also known as Muppet style. But basically, today, what we're going to do over the next 3 days is we're going to work on building a Muppet style puppet, or a hand and rod puppet, a foam and fleece puppet. This is the guy we're working on right here. Basically, the patterns that I'm going to give you and provide you with, and the instruction will be to build this character. The nice thing about this particular puppet, though, is it's very flexible and very easy to alter or adjust to create different styles or looks of puppets. So you're going to have a good foundation when we're done with all of this. Over the 3 days, we've got 3 4-hour days. There's a ton of information we're going to be going over, and I'm going to go pretty quickly. Hopefully not too fast. If I am, let me know. Shoot a text in and just tell me to slow down. Or if you need me to go over something again, let me know. Basically, though, the thing we're starting out with today are the foundations of the puppet, which will be the mouth plate and the construction of the mouth plate. Also, I'll show you a couple different samples or styles of mouth plates and why we use the materials we use now. We'll also go over the armatures for inside of the hand so that you have posable fingers on your puppets. The advantage of a posable finger is you can have your puppet grab things, he can point, you can create different positions for that. And we'll talk about bending the wires, building the foam and the pockets. We'll also talk about building the arm rods for the puppets. These are different styles of arm rods. There's basically what I'm giving you as a foundation. There are all different variations. Feel free to experiment. That's what this is all about. Generally, what we've found is over time we keep trying to make advancements and then back off and find that simpler is better. So that's kind of the premise for this whole thing. That's about it for that as far as the overview. If you have any questions, feel free to text it in and ask me. And I guess we'll move on to meeting our 4 students.
The students?
Oh, okay.
I'm assuming that we will get some other people in later.
Okay.
That's not a first.
But let's go. Go ahead and bring them up.
Oh, okay, great.
Is that Troy? Good morning, Troy.
I'm going to send you their sound at once.
So you see the puppets in the background.
Hello?
Hello, BJ. How are you, sir?
I'm good. Is this Troy?
Yes, it is.
Hi, how are you?
I'm well.
So,
Excited to take the class.
excellent. Where are you in from? Or where are you watching
I'm
from?
in Michigan.
Michigan, excellent. I'm from
You're in
Ohio
Michigan?
originally.
That's
Rapids,
good.
Nice. Very nice. So what is it are you a puppeteer now or a puppet builder now, or is this the first
I am.
up? Okay.
I do both. I build and I am a puppeteer. And so I'm just looking forward to learning new tricks and tips and all those good things along the way.
Excellent. Are you primarily doing hand and rod style, or are you doing marionettes as well, or any other styles?
I don't do marionettes. I do hand and rod. I do a lot of just trigger mechanism rod type puppets,
Oh, okay.
things like that.
Excellent. Are you familiar with lumen code and any of the code mechanisms?
No, I'm not.
Oh, you should definitely check into those if you're doing
Hold
rod
on.
mechanisms. It's LUMENCOAD. Lumen code. Fantastic has some fantastic tutorials on building rod mechanisms and that for hand puppets. So
Could you spell that one more time, please?
it's LUMENCOAD, Lumen Code.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I was checking out your Facebook page, and the hamster really, I was fancy to that. That was pretty neat.
Oh, the small Kia hamster. Yeah.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. Yeah.
When Kia first started their hamster campaign, they did a side campaign of virals, and that's what we created Moochie for. Moochie was a very small, pretty much realistic size hamster. We did a series of virals with that character, and it kind of went more in favor of the
I'll be
large
back, guys.
costumey types eventually with the campaign. But it was very cool. It was very fun playing with something that small and kind of anthropomorphizing that little character. So very simple.
Now, did you sculpt him out of clay and then cast it and then make like a polyfoam version of him, or?
We did. We sculpted the head out of clay. We made a quick mold and we basically hand roto casted those, the heads. And then we also vacuum formed portions of them too. We made a little vacuum form buck. The body itself was just hand snipped soft.
Okay, guys, I'm back.
And then we covered him. It was all hand covered. And then little wire armatures for the hands and the fingers. And yeah, that was pretty much it. Pretty basic. He had a very simple rod mechanism in him as well.
Very cool. Yeah, he was neat. He really caught my eye. All your other stuff was excellent too. I mean, it was neat. I don't know, something about him was just very attractive as far as character goes.
Gotcha. Now, are there any particular things that you want to look at or want to focus on or review in this course?
I would just love to just see your side of things. I mean, I'm sure there's a million ways to do everything when we create puppets and do things like that. So I just like to get another person's inside take on it and how they do things, and just enjoy learning from somebody else.
Great. No, that's basically what this is all about. It's providing a foundation. And again, the materials that I'm showing you guys, the methods are just a starting point. Again, they've come full circle for us and come back to this, but the whole idea of this is giving you the groundwork so that you can go out and try other materials. The pattern that I'm providing is a good basic pattern, but it's really easy to alter, so you can change shapes and experiment with it, even using different types of foam. The primary foam I like is the reticulated foam that I'd listed on the materials list, because it's a little bit stiffer. It's more of a plasticky, airy foam, and it's a little more dense. It actually holds a shape differently than a polyfoam. So even just switching the types of foam you use will give you a different result. Even using the same pattern, use the same pattern on 3 different types of foam, you'll get 3 different shapes out of it. So
Gotcha.
So don't ever be afraid to stray away from one particular style of doing something, because those happy accidents or discoveries are what make the puppets come alive and give you your own style.
I've been experimenting with a little L200 actually, making puppets with, which I hadn't done before. And as you mentioned, it does give you a whole different look and shape, so that's pretty neat.
Absolutely. L200 actually happens to be my favorite material to work with.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because you can hand sand it, you can vacuum form it, you can form it, it'll bond to itself with a heat gun without adhesives. You can coat it with different vinyls. It's not porous.
Oh, that's nice to know.
Actually,
Now, a vacuum forming L200,
yeah.
would that, I mean, what's the thickness that you would recommend to try that with?
It depends on, well, it depends on the size of your vacuum form and what you're pulling it over or into. If you're going to vacuum form L200, you're generally going to get a better shape if you use a negative mold and draw it in, because it'll go into the impression of whatever your sculpt is or whatever your mold is. Generally, if we're using it, we're using 1/2 inch or 1/4 inch. We're keeping it pretty thin. If you have a larger vacuum form machine, like a 3x4 or 2x4, you can go to a thicker material, 3/4, maybe even 1 inch, but it takes a lot of draw, and it's a lot harder to control the heat on that. The thinner it is, the easier it is to warm up. So.
Gotcha.
Yep. So.
Well, I'm excited.
Thank you.
Looking forward to getting to know. I mean, already you've taught me things, so it should be a good class.
Thank you. Well, again, if you have any questions, feel free to send them on over, and I'll answer them the best I can. And again, the main thing is here, just take what I'm giving you guys as a groundworks, and keep an open mind, and just experiment with it. And that's pretty much it. Just have fun with it.
All right, thanks.
Thanks, Troy. All right, everybody. First off, we'll start with talking about materials for building the mouth plates.
The
And a little
materials.
bit about
Let's
mouth
go.
plate construction. We've tried dozens of different ways of building mouth plates, from vacuum forming little cups to fit fingers in, to little, cups for the tips of your finger, all kinds of different things. We built some ultimate Cadillac mouth plates, which never saw the light of day. So it's one of those things that, when the end of the day comes, it's back to simplicity. It works the best. And what I found is the birch plywood that we talked about, which you can buy at any model shop. It's basically for model airplanes. 1/8 works really well for puppets. I think that's birch plywood. You can see the label there.
Yeah, he's real tight on it. See it up there?
Yep. And the stuff just works great. It's nice and durable. It's rigid. It glues really well. You don't have to deal with a lot of different issues like with vinyls and that, where the adhesive will peel off. We tried mouth plates. A lot of people like to build mouth plates all out of rubber, like this one. The problem I have with this is, after a while, when you start using them, actually, I have a puppet head here. Let me grab it. You can see if you build them out of foam or rubber, what happens is they start to soften up over time, and then the mouth won't close. You get these weird gaps, even though you're closing it. So your puppet starts to take on this weird smile or this weird look, and it's just because this rubber starts to break in over time and soften up. So I really prefer the rigid mouth plate. We also can do a combination mouth plate, which is part rigid. Where did I put it? Anyway, we'll do the top plate in birch plywood and the bottom plate in rubber, and that will give you a good effect too. What I found, though, is a lot of people do 2-piece mouth plates, like a top and a bottom, and you get this kind of alligator motion with it. I like that, but if you're doing it out of wood, it's really stiff. The only movement you have is this, and if you put a tongue in there or you have fleece that curls over, it never fully closes all the way, you get this weird gap. So
Like
what we've
this?
started doing is doing a 3-piece mouth plate, and that has a little third plate in the back. And what that does is that gives you a little bit of room. You can see in here. So when your fleece is on there, wrapped around, it'll close all the way, and it'll also allow room for a tongue inside. But the other thing it does is it gives you this ability to give your puppet forward and back motion on the jaw. So you're not locked into just an open flap. You can give them a little bit of an underbite or an overbite to accentuate emotion or whatever with your character. And it's really simple. It's a great move, great movement, and just an easier way to do things. And that's what we're going to be doing today. This is the mouth plate we'll be building. And I was talking about different styles of ways to attach your fingers or grab your mouth plate. And we've done little things where we've built little inserts that go on the bottom, so you can grab it with your thumb, like that. These work really well most of the time, but you have to make sure your lower jaw is nice and snug to fit in there. You can also put a little band of leather in there too and hold it. But what I've found is the easiest way is to do, let's see, or to make these little tubes for the top of the fingers. Basically, it looks like this. And your fingers just go in. This one's not completely glued together. I left it so I can show you how we do it. But you can kind of custom fit them to each person. And that way you've got 2 good points to grab the top of your puppet mouth plate. And then we do another one of these on the bottom with a tube in the center for the thumb. And this, I'm a lefty, in case you guys didn't notice. So there's a obvious problem sometimes when you put a puppet on. For me, if I put a puppet on and it's built by a right-handed person, it's built for a right-handed person. The thumb will be off center. So what I've done is tried to do everything so it's centered. If you use the softer materials like the leather or vinyl, it gives you the flexibility of using a left or right hand because there is a little flex in here. And the reason I sew it on and put it on this strip is it gives you a better surface. If you're gluing more surface area to the top of your mouth plate, like this one, it's going to be stronger. If you just try to glue these tubes on, eventually they're just going to pop off. The more you work this puppet, they're just going to wear out. So basically we'll build this little assembly and glue it all together. So basically materials of what we'll need to start, you're going to need your birch plywood. You're going to need some felt. These are some red felt. My personal material preference is called Ultra Suede, and it's a fake leather suede material. You can buy this at most higher-end fabric stores. Michael's or Joann's generally won't carry it, but if you have a higher-end upholstery shop or something like that, they may carry that. It's a little stronger than felt, but felt will work fine. You can also use velvet. Velvet will work just as well. The other thing you're going to need is your leather or suede. Any kind of leather, as long as it's soft. You don't want a real stiff leather. You want something softer. I think what we put in there was like 1/8 inch thick leather. It doesn't have to be finished. It doesn't have to be real pretty. It just has to be a nice, decent piece of leather. You don't want it being 1/4 inch thick on one end and 1/8 on the other. And let's see, you're going to want some contact cement. These are my personal preferences for puppet building. Barge is kind of a standard. Dual is the newer one that we've started using. I like Dual a lot. It's clear. Barge tends to have a very dark ambery brownish green color, where the Dual is more of a clear color. Also Barge, both of these, the good thing about them is if you make a mistake, you hit them with a hair dryer and you can pull them apart and reposition them and they'll stick back to each other. So you don't have to worry about accidentally overdoing it, or missing your mark when you put something together. You've got a little bit of flexibility. It also helps too if you're doing repairs. If your puppet's a year old and your hands are starting to wear out, you can take the heat gun or the hair dryer, warm it back up, pull the parts apart, fix them, and put it back together without having to rebuild everything, which is excellent. But anyway, both contact cements. Later on when we talk about using foam, I want to show you basically the correct way to use them. We find a lot of people overdo it, and the more glue you put on there, the harder it is to make it stick, and it creates a big clump inside your foam and turns real gummy. You don't need a lot of this stuff, especially with the foam. You just need enough to adhere the surfaces together. Let's see. I don't know if you have bandsaws that have access to a bandsaw. If not, a little coping saw will be fine. Or you can use a little craft saw to cut the birch ply. It's only 1/8 inch thick. It takes a little bit of time, but it's easy to cut through. And maybe a little bit of sandpaper if you have it, or a Dremel with a little sanding drum on it to clean up the edges on the plywood. You're not going to see them. They're going to be covered, so you just need to take the rough edges off. Let's see. And that should do it. Oh, and the only other thing you'll need is the back side. On the back side, we seal up the back as well. It sounds really silly, but gaff tape. If you have gaff tape, it works fantastic. Duct tape will work as well. It seems like a cheat to use tape, but it turns out to be the best material. And generally what we'll do is put a little glue down on the wood first and then apply the tape to it, and you get a really good bond, and it's nice and flexible. It makes the mouth plate work really well. If you don't have gaff tape, don't worry about it. You can use the same suede or felt on the back side that you used on the front. You'll just have to glue both sides and then put it together. So that being said, let's go ahead and get started.
Let's get started, baby.
Absolutely. We have a question.
Sure.
Are you going to be covering any kind
Hold
of...
on. That looks like a fighter jet in the background. You don't see it, but that looks like a fighter jet in the background.
Mechanization in the class, like eyes, eyebrows, anything along those lines?
Not in this class. I will say a little bit about mechanisms for puppets. There's no way to standardize it, so whenever you build a mechanism,
I like how they added the watermark
will have
there.
a specifically designed mechanism for that puppet to fit inside of it. Unless you're building 20 of the same puppet, and then you can standardize it. It's a bit of a challenge building mechs, and I try not to use them as much in puppets. Personal opinion here, they don't buy you that extra oomph that you need. I think a lot of that comes from the performance and the puppeteer that's creating the character. If you get a good puppeteer to put a puppet on, that puppet could have no moving features, and people will swear that puppet blinks. For years, people swear Miss Piggy blinks. I mean, they'll tell you that, oh, Miss Piggy blinks.
I didn't know Miss Piggy
doesn't
could blink.
She has plastic solid eyes, or she doesn't have eyelids that move or anything. It's the performance, it's the puppeteer, and that can pull that off.
God. All right, mommy. Let's back. Okay, guys, and I am back for real this time. I had to do a few favors for my mother, so yeah. Back.
If you're using fabric, if you're going to use your fabric and you don't have tape, you're going to want to put a second coat on this, like we did with the front, like the inside of the mouth plate. Put that on, let it tack up a little bit before you apply it. Sorry, I'm looking at the wrong camera here.
BJ, Fuzzy's asking if he can use duct tape instead of gas.
Yes, duct tape will work fine. Anything that has fiber inside of it, any kind of tape that has some strength to it, duct tape will work fine. If you're going to use the duct tape, if the silver is the only kind you have, then I would say go ahead and use it, but I don't recommend it all the time because what it does is it gets slippery. When you're puppeteering, puppets get hot and they get a little sweaty inside, and sometimes that'll get slippery in there where the fabric, more of the fabric type gaff tape or some of the matte, I guess now you can buy duct tape in like a million different colors, and a lot of them there's a matte version that doesn't have that gloss on it. If you can get that, that's fine too. But any kind of tape will work. I mean, if you even had some wide, like electrical tape too, the wider stuff, that would be fine too, just so long as you can put some additional adhesive on the back to stick, to really make it bond. So, I like the gaff tape the best because it's actually a woven fiber. It's almost like a fabric with adhesive infused into it. So it's really good to work with. And then what we're going to do is we're going to fold this, and then we're going to go right down one. We're going to go about 3/4 of an inch up and straight across. Don't worry if it's not perfectly even. It's not that important. Now we end up with that. Now what I like to do is put my thumb underneath and go right down this ridge so it goes inside like that. You can see it. So you get that nice inset ridge there. And then you're going to fold it over the back side. Same thing over here. Use your thumb and run it right down that ridge. And then finish it off. And then I'm going to use my little scissors and just trim this tape off. You can use your Persona blade or your razor blade too if you want. You just want to trim this extra tape off of here. And at that point, we have our finished mouth plate. This is basically the guts of the puppet here. Again, you can see you have that nice movement. And I usually do this a few times anyway, just to break it in, and also to get that to really seat the tape and the fabric on the other side to really seat and grab each other, so you don't have any separation inside later on.
BJ,
Yeah.
Troy is asking, have you ever cut the mouth
Wait,
plate
Tom
into
doesn't have a little
multiple
sister?
sections for more flexibility?
Yes, yeah. If you have, especially if you have a character with a real long mouth, if you want to do something with a more of a pointier, like bird type mouth, you can do the same thing. And if you're using the wood, you can split it. Like if I wanted to split it here and do that, and then same thing. You do exactly the same thing. You just put another joint into that, and then glue it into your puppet mouth. The other thing too is you can combine materials. If you are using, say you want a little bit of movement here, a little bit of here, but you want to really be able to pull the mouth, the very end of the nose in, you can combine materials. You can do the first part of it out of wood, and then you can do the end out of rubber, so that you really get that nice ability to really curve it at the very end, but you still have the rigid mouth plate to hold the corners of your mouth straight across. There's all kinds of ways you can mess around with that. Again, like I said, these are just the materials I like for this particular puppet. You have all kinds of flexibility to try different materials. You can use foam, you can use rubber. There are people who use the they go to Home Depot and they buy the garage sale corrugated plastic garage sale signs. I don't know if you've seen that. They look like the corrugated cardboard that boxes are made out of, but it's plastic and it's got the little corrugation between it. You can cut it out of that, and then you can break that stuff in. You could roll it over the edge of a table, and you get a really nice flexibility out of it. And that's real easy to find. You can get that in any hardware store for $1 and cut 100 mouth plates out of it. So that's another great option. You can try that. And fabric, you could use fabric. Just don't feel free to experiment. Just use whatever. But absolutely, yes, you can put as many hinges as you want in there. You can still do the option of doing the top wood and the bottom rubber as well if you really want a lot of motion in the bottom. I've seen puppets too where we've had a hard plate on top and no plate at all on the bottom, just the fabric, and then a loop for the thumb or a little cup for the thumb down in the end. So you have all this movement. The whole mouth will move around when you move your thumb around. I'm trying to think if I have any. I don't have any like that. Well, this one. Well, actually, these guys.
Oh,
Let's see.
one of those?
Nope, they all have soft plates. I'm trying to think. Like his, this guy's mouth is foam. He's got a hard plate in the top, and then he's got a little rubber plate in the bottom. But it allows me to really mess him up. You know, have a little bit of play with him. You know, he's not real soft.
Give him
here,
some
but
feelings,
you can see this will
too.
curl in here, but the top's rigid. The top plate goes back to here, and there's a little strip of rubber back here so that I have a little bit of play here. So I get a little bend right there. So. All right, let's move on
Making
to
the thumb
building
and
a little
finger
thumb
rings.
and finger rings.
That's next.
Get out your leather, your suede, whatever fabric you happen to have. Tandy Leather is a great resource. They're online. You can order just about any of this. It's just generally like a 1/8 inch suede or sueded leather or scrap leather. If you have a Tandy Leather near you, you can buy bags of scrap there. That's perfect, and it's inexpensive. You can also get this at Michael's or Joann Fabrics. They generally sell it for craft or jewelry making purposes for people who cut like wristbands and stuff out. It's fairly easy to get, and it doesn't have to be a fine leather. It doesn't matter what color. You know, it's purely structural. So whatever you can get. You can hit a thrift store and cut an old vest up. I mean, an old hippie vest if you find one. Then anything will work. So basically what we're going to do, and I don't have a pattern for this. This is pretty much just measuring. We want to cut out a couple of strips. If you have a cutting board and your Persona blade, you can do this with a ruler, which is pretty quick. Just be careful cutting it. You just run the ruler down. We're going to cut our 1-inch strips here. Again, these don't have to be perfect. If there's waviness on the edge or they're not perfectly symmetrical, don't worry about it. They're structural. So we get a good 1-inch strip, and then we want to cut a 3/4 inch strip as well. These rulers are fantastic. I don't know if you can see this. You can buy these at any fabric store, Joann Fabrics or Michael's. It's craft ruler. They have all these measurements on it, and they're clear. So if you need to cut 3/4 inch, you just lay it over your piece, line it up at the 3/4 inch mark, and then run right down the side of it, and you get a perfect 3/4 inch strip. So that's our 3/4. And what we need for this, we need 2 of these strips, which are going to be the part that adhere to the mouth plate, and those are 3 1/4 inches long. So again, we'll get our ruler out. Oops, I think I did that 3 1/2, didn't I? Nope, 3 1/4. 1, 2, 3 1/4. Again, don't worry if they're not perfectly square. They're going to be glued down inside the head. So that is our upper and bottom piece. Like that. The 3/4 inch wide strip, which is right there. is going to be for the loops that go around our fingers. And those are 3 inches long, and we want to cut 3 of those, 2 for the top fingers and 1 for the thumb. Actually, I'm going to cut this in square.
Hey, BJ.
Yes, sir.
Catherine is wondering, do you need to change the height of the spacer plate for teeth?
No. No, this will work really well for teeth, unless you're doing really exaggerated teeth where you need something that's an inch or 2 tall. Like this guy's teeth, you know.
The Jack
This
Sparrow
actually, no,
puppet.
this is an old plate.
Yeah,
This is a
yeah,
regular
that puppet looks like Jack
single hinge
Sparrow
plate.
from
You can see,
Pirates
you
of
see
the
his
Caribbean.
teeth, but it really doesn't stick out that much. What you're going to do when we glue the foam onto the head, onto the mouth plate, and then cover it with fleece, the fleece actually wraps around and inside the mouth plate, giving us another 1/8 inch on the top and the bottom. So we've got a nice gap. We still have a nice gap in there. So if we put teeth in there, they can show, you know, that it'll close over them. If you want more of a distance between that, you can make that wider. The only warning I will say is the higher you go on that back piece, the more chance you have of that head shifting one way or the other, and not necessarily staying like this. It'll actually do this. It'll be in a natural position like this or like this. It's just one of those things we discovered in messing around with it, that if you get too high, even if you go over 1 inch, it'll do this. Because the foam, when you build it, has a natural tendency to pull in one direction or the other. So depending on the shape of your head and how you glue it down, it could pull this way or this way. The other thing too is if you go too wide, you get gaps in the corner, in this back corner of the mouth. But what you can do, if your teeth are showing too much, is you can always add a little bit of foam here, like a small, thin piece of, you know, foam around that edge, and you can take that fleece and roll it up over and give yourself a nice rounded lip on the puppet too, which is always nice. It's a different look too. I'm trying to think. I don't think. Yeah, he's got it. You can see like this one. It doesn't just go over and straight. We actually build a lip. Let me see if I can show that to you. See the difference here. There's a piece of foam that comes up and over, and same on the bottom. So it gives you a little more space in there. Teeth are always fun too, because like if you're using teeth on a puppet, you have options. You can run uppers or lowers or both. You can make them bucktooth. You can give them a really bad underbite. The teeth don't have to be in the mouth. They can actually be forward on the lip, and it still doesn't look wrong. So it's really up to you. It's up to you what you want to do with it and the look you want for your character. It's one of those things too. What I like about puppets is you don't have to draw them out first. This gives you a lot of freedom to really experiment. So once you get your basic puppet together, you can try different features. You can pin them on. You can try different looks. You can move teeth around before you settle on where things have to be. So it gives you a little more freedom. All right, back to the finger loops here. And the one for the thumb, you know what, I'm actually going to cut the one for the thumb at 4 inches. So do the 2 at 3 inches, and then one for the thumb at 4, just in case. I have a very large thumb, unfortunately, so I want to give myself a little extra fabric here, or extra material to work with. Now if we're at that point, we want to take our 2 strips. On our top strip, we want to mark a line 3/4 of an inch in from each outside edge. And then on our bottom one, which is 3 1/4, 1 1/2, 1 1/8, 1 1/2 and 1/8. We want to mark our center on that one as well. And then we're going to take our loops and we're going to attach them. I stitch these together. The easiest way is to sew them. It's going to make them the strongest. You can glue them, but I would highly recommend reinforcing them. I'm going to glue them to get them set in place, and then I'm going to run a couple stitches through with a needle and thread just to lock them in. It's going to prevent them from falling off or heating up and wearing out. Inside of a puppet head, when you're performing, when you're puppeteering, they heat up a lot, especially on set where there's a lot of cameras and lights, and people do sweat. Inside of a puppet head, when you're
Hold on, that little puppet right there, it looks like one of the Punch Judy puppets right there.
and they heat up a lot, especially on set where there's a lot of cameras and lights, and people do sweat inside the puppets. They get warm, so if you're just using a lot of contact cement on stress points, they'll heat up, soften up, and can pop apart. So you really want to reinforce that stuff as much as you can. Our hair dryer out. Let those dry for a minute. Do this bottom one. You can find center on these two just by folding them if it's easier than measuring them out.
This slime has become stale, you guys. See how it's all wrinkly? It doesn't even fall anymore.
And again, we're going to put a second really light coat as our adhesion coat. Only on one side though. Go ahead and get my needle and thread ready while we're waiting for that to set up. If you have a sewing machine, you can sew this on a sewing machine. Just go back and forth over it 3 or 4 times and get a good secure bond or stitch through it. But you can also hand sew it, whatever's easier or quicker, whatever you have access to. So a lot of times if you're building on the road, you don't have a sewing machine with you. So everything we're going to do on these puppets can be done by hand. As far as sewing, it's great if you have a machine and want to machine sew it. Some fabrics are worse than others at showing seams, so we hand sew to hide the seams. But if time is of the essence and you want to knock these out, run them through a sewing machine and stitch them together really quickly, it works fine. I think we're still a little damp on that one. So our thumbs dry faster. So what we're going to do is just line this up. You want to line it up pretty much the best center as you can in between. It's a little narrower, you can see there. And then just really press it down. Again, the contact cement's all about putting pressure on it. Get that bond really good. that's going to be our thumb loop. Same here, you want to go pretty much center with it, like that. The overhead still? Oh, there we go. The overhead. There we go. You can see there that it's pretty much centered up. And then we'll fold this one back, and we're going to do the other side the same way. Line it up center. Press it down. If you're sewing through leather, good sharp needle is really important. A leather needle is great if you have it. Regular sewing needle, like you buy at any store, is just round. A leather needle actually is flattened out at the end and has, it's almost like a spear. It has a nice flat point which will really push through the leather a lot easier. But a regular sewing needle will work fine. The other thing you can do if you want to make your life a little bit easier is you get a punch like this. Whoops. This is a rotary punch or a star punch tool. It's for punching holes in leather and fabrics and stuff. And these are all different sizes. You can use the smallest setting and just punch a couple holes in. See there? And put one more in the middle. This will make your life a whole lot easier, but again, not necessary. Just if you don't have access to a punch, you can sew right through the leather, the suede. It just takes a little more effort. Use a thimble if you have one so you don't push the pin back in your finger, or the needle back into your finger. There you go. We're going to cheat here a little bit. Feed this through here. Oops. I'm just stitching this together, like I was saying before, just running a few stitches through to really secure it. And I'm just knotting off one side right now, and I'll jump on the other one. Again, these don't have to be pretty. They're internal. Just make sure they're strong. That's all. That you get a good tight seam or a tight stitch. And there's that first one. And all that's doing is really securing this so it doesn't pull off. And I'm knotting it off on the back side because that's the side that we're going to glue down to the wood. So if you knot that, once we glue it down, it's going to be really secure. There's no chance of that knot pulling apart or stretching out or popping out on you, because it'll be actually attached to the wood plate below. That's what this one looks like. Look at the top. That's our top one. And then I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing with the thumb. thumb piece. Let's move on to gluing these loops together. Now generally for this top one, they're spaced so that your second and fourth fingers fit in there and you have a nice space in between. The nice thing about, again, using the suede or the fabric is it's flexible, so if you need to move, you have some flexibility in there without locking your fingers really rigidly down to the plate. If you want to take your mouth plate, what we want to do is figure out where your fingertips meet the plate. You want to come back just a little bit from there, because your foam is going to be glued down to this front edge here, so you don't want your fingers all the way forward. There's nowhere to glue the mouth plate down. Now if you're working with some of the longer mouth plates like we were talking about earlier, like doing an overbite or an underbite, you have a little more freedom. You can bring your hands forward a little more. The one thing you never want to do is you never want this sitting all the way into the back of your hand, because you're going to lose the mechanics of your hand are going to prevent you from really getting a good open close on that with the rigid plates. It's going to get locked and you're going to get a weird movement. You always want a little bit of floating room in there, and that's going to give you that ability to do the forward and back on it. And it's also going to give you the most expression, because then you can actually pull the whole plate back into the puppet and crunch his face up. It gives you a little more flexibility with that. So we want to figure out basically where you want the loops are just behind your first knuckle of where your fingers are. And you want to wrap that around. This is a little tricky to do with one person, but you want to wrap that around. You don't want it super tight, but you want it snug. You want to be able to pull your finger back out. So if you make it too tight, your finger will get stuck, and it's a pain. One thing to remember though too, fabric, leather, vinyl, all those materials are going to stretch a little bit over time. So you can go a little more snug. I wouldn't go tight, don't go constricted tight, but go a little more on the snug side, because after these break in, they're going to loosen up a little bit. If they do loosen too much, you can always, being in this contact cement, you can heat the mouth plate back up, pull it out, and tighten these back up again without having to rebuild. But what I do is figure out where I want it, do a little overlap, and then just mark that line with a pen. Same on the other side. It doesn't matter whether you go right over left, left over right. And again, do it for your hand or do it for the person who you're building the puppet for, because everyone's fingers are different, and you're going to have different sizes on those. Like my pointer finger is definitely a lot bigger around than my index or my ring finger, so I get a little less room there. So then what we want to do is we're just going to glue this. We're not going to stitch this part. Back to our contact cement. And glue right to our line on that side. If you're using a fabric, a vinyl, something that has a smooth side on it, that isn't textured, I would recommend roughing that side up using a little sandpaper or a little wire brush and scuff it up, because some of the smoother vinyls, the adhesive will peel off and it won't stick. So if you're using something even like this leather that has this coating on it, what I'll do is I'll take a piece of sandpaper and just really get in here and really scuff it up, get some of that coating off of there, just so that so you have a little more purchase, so the glue will adhere better, so when you fold it over and press it, you're going to get a good bond. This suede works really well because it's textured on both sides. And let's do our thumb as well. The thumb, when you're making your loop for your thumb, you're going to want to keep it up right between the nail and your first knuckle on your thumb. And this one's a little different because it's not a smooth ring, you want to make this little cross. It's almost like the little ribbon, the little volunteer ribbon, or that you see, because your thumb tapers a lot more than your finger does, and you want to really get a good grip on where that knuckle is. So you're going to want to trace this, and same on this one. And then I would mark this one too on the other side. So if you can get under here, you know that that's going to be like that. And then we're going to glue that. And you really want a strong glue bond on this point because this is one of the highest stressed points in the head. So we're going to do a double coat of glue on both sides. And then let those both set up and then press them together. This one should be dry, so I'll put a second coat on here.
I'm still watching. I'm multitasking.
Alright, let's see. Let's see if this is dry enough. Okay, go back in here, set that down. A little tricky here. Actually, you know what? It might be easier just to go ahead and line this up because we marked those lines. And then don't really press them together all the way, but get them locked in. And then make sure it fits. And then once you know it fits, then go ahead and really press those down. And then same on this other one. I get a little overzealous with the glue here on this side. Fits well. So you want to go ahead and really press those down. If you really want to make sure they're going to bond on these two, you can always use your pliers, needle nose pliers or whatever, and really just give a good squeeze. And remember which one's your right and your left. Which one's your ring finger, which one's your index finger, especially if they're different sizes. So I'm going to go ahead and mark mine. Ring and now just mark the ring finger. I know that one. The other thing you can do is just write an arrow of what points front. So you know that's the front of the puppet. I gotta remember which way this one went. That's our thumb. Same thing, use your pliers if you want and really crimp this down. And that is now our thumb piece. So what we end up now is our mouth plate from before, our top finger loops, and our thumb loop. Let's go ahead and glue them down. Now what we want to do again is we want to pop them on. We want to see where they're going to sit on this mouth plate.
And BJ, Catherine is asking, could you sew the tops together for extra strength if you wanted to?
Yes, yeah, absolutely, if you wanted to take the time to do that. Generally what I've found, because of the fact that these stretch over time, I don't stitch them because I like to be able to pop them apart and then retighten them, especially if the material's new. Once it breaks in, it sort of sets in at a specific point, but that initial break-in, like this will stretch a lot. This suede will just, because it isn't treated on one side, so it doesn't have a sealant on it, so this will keep stretching the more you work it and stretch and sweat. So, but yeah, if you want to, absolutely, you could just stitch it if you wanted to. If you didn't want to do the glue at all, too, that's fine. I know a lot of people don't like using adhesives, where their skin's touching, and that's perfectly acceptable. The one thing that I will say though is I do like keeping the seam at the top. We tried ones before where we put the seam on the bottom and sewed the whole thing together, but you get a weird thickness because you get 3 layers on the bottom in between your finger and the mouth plate, and then it's also really difficult to correct, to fix if you need to fix it. It's a lot easier to have access to it on the top like this. So this one looks like it's pretty much going to sit right toward, like about an 1/8 of an inch off the back of this plate. So I'm going to go ahead and mark that on here, like that.
Golly, a perfect score.
And I'm going to go ahead, I'm not going to mark the thumb yet. I want to do the top first, so I can actually put that on. And then that one's secure. Once that's secure, then I'll put my thumb on and figure out where my thumb needs to be on the bottom. If you try to do them all at once, sometimes it's hard to line up, and once you put it on, you'll find the mouth sits crooked. I think it'll sit too far forward or too far back. So let's go ahead and glue this on.
And BJ?
Yeah.
We're going to take just a short break for a second while we swap out our recording.
Okay.
Here we go.
We're back. Thanks for the break. And hopefully at this point we're moving forward on the mouth plate, and we've got the glue set up on both sides. We're top and bottom. I went ahead and did a second coat on both of these as well. You really want this to be nice and secure. So then the next step is just lining it up with our marks that we put on earlier. And really, again, really pressing down, especially on these edges and inside the tubes. The more even pressure you give on the entire thing, the better bond you're going to get and better strength of the bond. There we go. Now we've got a nice little grip on the top, and then we want to move on to the bottom. So get it so that it's comfortable on your thumb where you want it. And then everyone's thumb is in a different position. I'm one of those weird people, my thumb's pretty much center or where my fingers are, but a lot of people's are off to the side, one way or the other. Make this comfortable for you. If this is your puppet, build it for you, because that's what's important. If it needs to be at an angle, like that, then that's where you want to line it up, or this way. If you need it more forward or more backward, just make sure you try to keep that mouth, try to keep that mouth with the back centered. Keep it nice and centered here and flat. And just make sure it's comfortable for you. The worst thing you can do is try to force your thumb into an unnatural position, because then when you puppeteer, you're going to tire out right away. It's going to lock up inside the palm of your thumb. So make sure that it works for you. Again, me, I'm weird. It's right in the middle. So I'm going to go ahead and mark that. if it runs over, like here where the foam is going to be glued down, don't worry about it. We'll trim that off and peel that back later. We can always take some off. Same thing if it's over here and it runs off the side, don't worry about it. We can trim that and pull that off. So we'll go ahead and secure that.
So, BJ, Aaron is asking about making fiberglass underskulls for puppets.
Yeah.
Is this a common technique, and how does it work exactly?
You know what? If you're building mechs into a puppet, any kind of mechanisms, then yeah, fiberglass underskull or vacuum-formed underskulls are kind of a necessity, depending on the amount of work you want. I personally don't like fiberglass. I don't like the smell. I don't like how itchy it is. I don't like the dust it creates. Generally, if I have to do a skull for something, what I'll do is I'll sculpt a core for it out of clay, and I'll make a vacuum form buck, and I'll vacuum form it out of ABS plastic. As you're gonna get a same kind of structure without the weight of it and the toxicity of the fiberglass. The other thing too is, puppets are soft. They're a soft good. There's a lot to be said for being able to do this to a puppet's head. Especially if you're using them, puppets are meant to be physical. They're not meant to be just a talking head. If you're doing a puppet show and it's just this, and the puppet's just talking the whole time, you don't need puppets. Puppets are meant to be physical. They're meant to be, I don't want to say abused, but physical activity, dropping them, running them over, pulling them apart, bashing them into each other, or just really being able to use the physical nature of them to do things a person couldn't do justifies using a puppet. When you start putting hard skulls and everything into it, you lose that. You lose a lot of that flexibility or that softness. Also, when we're doing puppets where we do a blank like this, a blank puppet, and we want to make different characters out of it, if it's got a hard skull, then we're pretty limited. We have to drill a hole in it every time, or we have to change things around to be able to change that puppet into something else. If it's all soft foam, we can pin into this, we can sew into this, we can put a couple stitches and pull them and create a brow, without damaging the puppet, and it just gives us a lot more flexibility. So it's really whatever your intent is. Again, if you're doing something with a lot of mechanics, then yeah, you can definitely use fiberglass or use a vacuum form core or a skull. The other thing too is with the skulls, you can use L200, which was the foam I was talking to Troy about earlier. This lobster's made out of it. It's a more rigid foam. You see it's white. It's a lot more dense, and it can be heat formed. Like these were heated up with a heat gun and then just curled. It can be sanded and painted, but you can pattern a skull out of this and get a nice rigid skull that's about a third of the weight of fiberglass. It weighs very little, and then you can build into that. Also, this is tool dip. This is just plastic dip. You can buy it at Home Depot to coat it, and then we use airbrush paints, to shade it and do some color. But I mean, everything sticks to this. You don't have to worry about latex soaking into it or anything like that, like you would with the porous foam. So there's options. There's definitely options. But yeah, by all means. I mean, that's the skulls are an essential part. Especially the other thing too is if you're getting into a really big head. Like I like to keep everything as small as possible. My very first job working with the Muppets was the Muppets at Walt Disney World. It was a TV special, and I've never seen the Muppets in person up until then. And you grow up with them and you really think they're huge, that they're as big as people. And then when you get there, when the first time I got there, I walk in and it was the Electric Mayhem sitting on posts, and their heads are this big. They're this big. They're super, super tiny, which really surprised me because like you see Dr. Teeth, you think his head's like this big, and it's a 5-inch ball. It's really tiny, and his whole body's only this big. They just, on camera, they read a lot larger. And what I've discovered in 25 years of doing this is that the bigger you get, the less it reads, the less you can do with the character because you're limiting the performance. All of a sudden, this little movement doesn't mean much. In order to move a big puppet, it's got to be this. It's got to be theatrical. where if you keep everything small, all your movement, even the little tiny refined ones, read really well with the character. So the smaller you get, the less likely you are to need a skull or a real strong internal structure for your puppet. So that's about it. Hope I answered your question. So let's get back to gluing here.
How's BJ doing so far, guys?
I hope I'm not boring you guys.
I think he's kicking butt. This is the first time you've ever done this on video. You've
Yes.
taught before, but the first time with
First
cameras
time
in
on
your
camera,
face.
yeah.
And it's like you've been doing this for
Oh.
forever.
Well, thank you.
So let's have an early cyber applause for BJ. We'll have another one at the end of class, but
Thank you.
you're awesome.
Thanks, I appreciate that. Now I just got to get Matt in here to build the puppet.
Fuzzy wants to know, would you do anything differently with the finger loops for a rubber mouth plate?
No, not with the finger loops, but let me show you something I would do. Hold on. If you're gonna do if you're gonna do a rubber mouth plate, I still like the finger loop technique, but what I
I'm
do
gonna
is
check.
add what we call a bean. to
Imagine that. We're probably
see.
1 hour into this
Piece of
movie.
rubber around here. There it is. So this is my scrap rubber here. What I'll do, if we're gonna do a rubber mouth plate, I'll make a little bean shape. Like this. And I'm gonna cut this out real quick and I'll show you what we use it for. And these beans, the bean shape can be made to fit your individual finger. Sorry, this one wasn't cut out really well, but anyway, we make that bean. Put your finger loop on here, onto the rubber. Let me see if I can get a good shot of this. So we'll put like a thumb. Put that there, and this bean is going to glue down right along the back. This one because of how thick this suede is, I would actually make this thicker. I would double this up. And what that does is it gives you a little grip. So when your thumb goes in there, you have this nice little bean resting right behind the pad of your thumb. This mouth plate, I wouldn't do a short mouth plate rubber, but if you're doing a longer one, like Kermit or something longer where you want to really curl that in, what that bean does is that gives you this double edge. Let me see if I can, let me cut another one out real quick and I'll show you.
Thank you, sir.
So glue this together and get that nice double height in there. And what that does is that gives a nice sharp edge or a nice square edge for that pad of the thumb to push against. So when you pull back on that rubber mouth, your thumb's just not slipping out of the loop. It gives you a little grip. So you can really curl that mouth in. And basically all it's doing is giving you a little edge, a little key to pull against. Because what happens on this is if you just try pulling, sometimes your thumb will just slip out. So what the little bean will do, will fill in that gap right there and give you that part to pull against. So that gives you a lot more flexibility. Especially if you're using a really soft rubber for the bottom, you have a lot of play in that. You can really roll that mouth in or twist it. It gives you a lot more to work with. The mouse that I showed you earlier, he's got a bean in the back, and his is probably about 1/4 of an inch thick. I think I layered 3 pieces of rubber together and put that in there, and then took a Dremel to it and just kind of rounded, smoothed it. I didn't round this edge, but I blended it down so it didn't fill up too much in there. But it's great. I mean, just that way you have a little hook to pull on. As far as the top, I wouldn't. What I've done on the top of mouth plates, if I'm not using the loops at all, is I'll use L200 and I'll make a little hump that your fingers can curl over and glue that to the top of the rubber mouth plate, and I cover that with suede. So basically you get a nice pad, but it's a grip, so you can grip that front, and then you can do the same thing on the front. You can pull that whole thing back. I don't have one with me.
We have a wonderful question from Christine. Can you use Velcro for the finger rings?
Can you use Velcro?
Yes.
It's not gonna be strong enough to hold. Like if you put Velcro in there and then make loops and go to stick them on there, they're gonna pop off. I've never found a Velcro, whether it's Velcro or dual lock or one of the other types of locking fabrics. They're just not strong enough. They're gonna wear out and pull off. So I don't recommend it. I think securing it and stitching it and gluing it is probably the strongest way to do it. I mean, you can try. If you're going to do Velcro, what I would recommend then is, if you want to Velcro the top, make your rings and then make another strap of Velcro that can go over the top of those and hold them down. So do like the male Velcro here, do female loops with the female on the outside, and then another strip of male Velcro to go over the top to sandwich it in there. And I think you might get the strength there. That might be an option. Are you trying to do that because of different people using the, which one am I on now, this one or that one? This one, okay. Do you have different people using the puppet that you want to move the rings around? Is that what the thought is? That's probably what I'm guessing. So what you'll find with this, even though securing it, if you make these standardized enough, different people can use them, and once they loosen up, they'll twist, so you can even switch different fingers in and stuff too. So you get a lot of flexibility out of this style. But again, foundation. So whatever you want to experiment with, that's the point, is figure out what works for you. Everyone has something a little different that works better for them. So I hope I answered your question. Let's go ahead and secure this bottom thumb plate. There we go. And now we got our mouth plate. What's nice then, we have all this motion, the forward and back. So we got the underbite, the overbite. And you got all the motion you need. The one thing you want to avoid is making these loops. If you have a longer mouth plate, you don't want these loops back here. You want them up behind this first knuckle, between the first and second knuckle. If you move them too far back, what happens is your mouth basically gets stuck on there, and then you run into that part where you're locked into how much you can open the mouth, because there's no room for your hand to flex. Like you can see, there's a lot of movement in my hands and the fingers, and you want that. This is all your expression. This is the expression for your puppet. Those little subtle movements. It's not all bouncy hands. Most of that movement just comes in there. A little tiny. You see Kermit do that all the time. He does a little gulp. But and you don't want to lose that. So that's it. That's our mouth plate. And I hope you're having success. If not, don't worry. We got 2 weeks until the next class, so you can experiment with this in different styles if you want to do longer mouth plates or different shapes, or enlarge. Once the patterns you get the patterns, if you want to enlarge them or make them smaller, you're welcome to do that as well. And that would wrap up mouth plates. I'd like to move on to hands next. So let me clean up a little bit here, and we'll get our materials, quickly go over our materials for making our hand armatures and putting our hands together. And the rest of this class, we're going to work on the armatures for the hands, building the hands, the pocket, and how we attach the rods, and also building quick arm rods for the puppet. And then I think the last thing we'll wrap up before the end of the day is getting started on our flat patterning. So when you get your patterns downloaded, you can go ahead and start cutting the pieces out. So when we come back for the next class, If you have all your foam cut out, we'll go ahead and start assembling, get the puppet put together, get our neck tube sewn on, and start covering and go over stitching and fabric patterning, and go ahead and get our puppets finished up. So give me a minute or two to clean up, and we'll move on.
And BJ, the students are asking about the reticulated foam.
Yeah.
Specifically, if you could cover that a little bit. Some of the students are from overseas, and they're, L200 and reticulated foam's not available.
Gotcha. As far as foams, any kind of flat foam will work. What I talked about earlier, we're back on that camera. Any kind of foam will work. So it just depends on what you have available. I like 1/2 inch to 3/4, and it sounds really strange, but my favorite is 5/8, which is right in the middle, because sometimes 1/2 inch can be a little thin and will collapse. 3/4 can be a little thick, so that 5/8 right in the middle is a good thickness if you can get your foam cut. If not, you can buy it, like if you're going to a craft store or an upholstery shop, you're going to find 1/2 inch and 1 inch. 1/2 inch is a better option than 1 inch. 1 inch is a little thick, and you're going to get really flat panels on some of your shapes, where the 1/2 inch is going to contour better. Reticulated foam this is reticulated. If we get a really tight shot of the foam, you can see what the pores look like. See how it's really porous? If you stretch it, it's got a lot of stretch. You can almost see through it. I mean, it's very, very open pore. This is about a 35 ppi foam, and if you're asking for foams, 35 ppi is pores per inch, and it's really open. It's a very open foam. This is called filter foam as well. If you can't find it under reticulated foam, you can ask for filter foam. And what it is, it's an open cell foam. It's very plasticky. It's very firm, versus the poly foam, which poly foam. Like if you just go to the fabric store and you buy poly foam, it looks more like this. So we get it close in there, where you can see this is a much higher PPI, but it's also a softer material. And this stuff, it just feels a lot softer. It compresses differently. It curves differently. You have to experiment with it. If you can get different densities, if you can get like a 4-pound, a higher pound foam, upholstery foam, you're going to be in better shape than a softer one. The softer one is going to require more reinforcement. So that's basically the difference in the foam. L200, let me grab a piece. Hold on 1 second. Be right back. I had a piece of L200. No, maybe I don't. No, I wasn't building with L200, so I didn't bring it. Oh yeah, that's it. This is L200 foam. You can see there's no pores in this. This is called a closed cell foam. That means this is not water absorbent. If you pour water on this, it just runs right off. It's very dense, and it's also very firm. It doesn't stretch at all, but you can heat form this. And this stuff glues and sands and does shapes really well. This requires more detailed patterning or more intricate patterning. With the softer foams, your pattern can be more open because the foam itself is going to contour itself out or round out. This won't. You really need to get smaller pieces, figure out all your darks, and work with it a little more. This is also a lot more rigid, so it's going to hold the shape better. So if you've ever seen the exercise mats with the rubber coating on them, the ones you can stand on, they have that kind of blue rubber, that's what this is. This is what's inside. It's the L200 foam. It's great for stunt mats and stuff like that too. The place to find them, if I would look online for foam suppliers, I use a company called Atlas Foam. They're in Sylmar, California. They carry all these foams. The brand of reticulated foam they carry is called Dry Fast, and it's primarily used in agriculture and irrigation for filters, for water filter systems, for ponds, also for air filter systems. But they also carry other foams, but you can order from them. They'll ship anywhere. You can try Rogers Foam Corporation on the East Coast. Just look, my main suggestion would be look online for foam suppliers or just foam in your yellow pages or online in your area, and find out who's out there, who's supplying foam for upholstery. And you'll probably have good luck. It just takes a little bit of legwork. a little bit sitting in front of the computer and then making a few phone calls to find out who's got what. If you want to use L200 and you can't find it, they sell at Home Depot or hardware stores. They sell these 2-foot by 2-foot gray interlocking squares for floor mats. They're like soft half-inch thick floor mats, and they lock together, and you can build the squares into a huge area. That's L200. Same foam, you can buy those. The only thing is they're not smooth on both sides. Usually one side is textured with a skin on it, like a cross pattern texture. But you can shave that off. You can actually sand that off, or you can use that on the inside of your project. But that's the same foam. It's gray, but you can also find it in blue and pink. I think I've seen all 3 colors. So that'll work well too, and that's a lot easier to get. It's a little more pricey that way. I think it's like $20 some for 4 squares or whatever. But anyway, those are options. The internet, again, is always the best option. Foam, you can order foam from just about anywhere. Some places have a minimum order, so it can get kind of pricey, but just keep calling around until you find somewhere. If you guys have a specific question about a supplier, you can catch me on Facebook at Puppet Design Studio on Facebook, and shoot me a message, and I'll actually, you know what I'll do before the end of the 3rd class, I'll put a supplier list together for you guys of who we use, and I'll go ahead and have that emailed out to you so you have those resources as well. The good thing is almost everybody's online now, and they'll ship anywhere. So even if you're overseas, a lot of these materials, they're not hazardous, they're not dangerous materials, so you can ship them just about anywhere. So, good. So, all right, let me get back to cleaning up here. Put our mouth plate aside. All right. On to hands. This is the hand pattern that I am using. And I wish I were able to send this to you right now. I will do my best to give you measurements so you can do it, but I would say just draw your best assumption of what you want your hand to look like. If you want longer fingers, make longer fingers. The technique's the same, it's just the pattern itself will vary depending on what you guys want. This for us is a good standardized pattern. It's what's on all these guys here. And I really like the length of the fingers and everything, so it works out really well. So what we do with our pattern, and also this is a 3-finger. This is the Mickey Mouse pattern, you know, the cartoon 3-finger and a thumb. You can do 4 and a thumb, 2 and a thumb, whatever, or a mitten, whatever you decide to use, whatever's right for your character, go ahead and use. Let's see, as far as measurements of this particular one for the scale on this puppet, I think we're at, from the tip of the front finger, 1, 2, 3, we're at like 4 1/4 inches to the back. And across the fingers themselves are about 2 inches long. That's generally what I like. 1 1/2 to 1 3/4 on the pinky, but 2 inches for the 2 main fingers. And then the thumb's about 1 3/4 inches, 1.5 to 1.5 inches on this one, a little bit over. But just draw a hand pattern out of what you want, keeping that relative size in mind. And again, every one of these puppets is unique. It'll be distinctively yours. So whatever you want to do with your puppet, or however you want it to look, keep that in mind and don't worry about sticking to this exact pattern. It's not that important for hands. Armatures. You, with our hands, is inside. Get a good shot of that. Is we'll do a wire armature. This one's a bit used. And then we do a palm in the center. And then we do a pocket to attach the rod into. We've tried, I don't know how many styles of rod connections. Everything from threaded rods that screw in to clips, to these little key-shaped ones, to ones that have a bolt in the side. And honestly, the one I find works the best is, again, back to the simplest, is we put a flag, we bend a flag on the end of the rod, like this, and then we cover that flag with tape. We use double stick tape, tends to be my favorite. And then basically what it does is it slides up into a pocket, and then we just pin the seam closed and press it down, and we get a really good connection that gives us all this movement. It actually moves the palm, the whole hand, where you don't have a rod rotating. So however you turn the rod, it turns the whole hand. It also gives you a lot of ability to, to move the hand around without it slipping inside too. And then it's just really simple. It's real quick and efficient. And when you're on set, you have seconds to change things. It works really well. You're not sitting there trying to find clips and twist things and move things around. So that's what we're going to work with. First thing we'll start off with are our materials. We need our wire. 18, 19, or 20 gauge galvanized steel wire. You can get this at any hardware store. And this is my favorite. For something this small, I like the smaller gauge wire. I like to use the 20 or the 19. 18 is thicker. For if you're doing longer fingers or you want something a little stronger, it doesn't seem strong when you unspool it, but once we bend it and twist it, it becomes very, very strong. It's also a little more effort to work with the stronger wires. So, for this one, I'm just going to work with the 20. And what we want to do is we're going to bend a form to fit inside of our hand pattern. So whatever hand pattern you have, what you want to do is take a pen or a marker, and you want to mark points about a 1/4 inch in from the end of each fingertip. Like that.
Why didn't I?
And then you want to mark a point right at just about a 1/4 inch in from the inside end of each finger. Like here. And same on the thumb. The thumb actually will probably bring back, if you take this first finger back and bring the thumb point, that's more the base of the thumb. You want this thumb to have the most bend, because you want to be able to bend it all the way across. You want to come in basically straight down the edge of this finger. And then we're going to do 2 connecting points back here as well. Now this becomes our template for bending our wire. If you have the time and you know you're going to be making more puppets in the future with this hand size, and you get one you like, what I've done is taken this pattern, traced it on, and I've done the same thing on a piece of wood. And then I've tapped nails into those points. Where I drew those points on each one, I've just tapped a straight finish nail. Now this actually gives me a nice jig to bend my wire around, so I'm not trying to do it by hand. It takes longer to do it by hand. It's not impossible. I mean, it's no way you have to do it if you don't have access to this or don't have this right away. But if you know you're going to make 5 pair of hands, this is a much faster way. You do it and everyone comes out the same. So basically what we want to do is start with our wire. And we want to start, if you're using, let me do one, actually let me show you how to do it with this, and then I'll do one with the template as well. Alright, so we've got our 20 gauge wire. First thing we want to do is we want to give ourselves some good length coming off the back, so that we have extra wire to twist to finish out our pattern with. Just start with your first bend, and basically you want to follow this right around all those points, and just bend it with your hand. When you get to these, start the bend and then just pull it away and crimp it with your fingers. Just give it a good squeeze.
Yeah.
And if you need to, if you want to, if you want to tape this down while you're doing it, if you need to hold it down or put some weights on it, you can do that. I find you end up picking it up so many times, it's easier to just kind of do it and keep checking it. Okay, so we'll go up to there. Oops. If it's easier to cut a piece of wire and take it off the spool, you can do that too. I'm really terrible at judging the distance of how much wire I need, so I'm just going to leave it on. Okay, so that's where we're at so far. If you need to use the pliers too, you can always do that to get a cleaner bend. we want to roughly follow this pattern. Stay as close to these points as you can. If you go over a little or a little under, don't worry about it. You know, you can fix it along the way. Just pull it back out and straighten it out and give it another shot. There you go. And do this one. Oops, I did it the wrong way. There we go. And then we want to come down to that point right there. And then right at the back, I like to split that distance in the middle there. So we'll do this one here. And there we have, let me see if I can show this to you better with some back, something behind it. That's what our wire looks like right there. You can see how that just fits right over. Actually, you know what? Let's do this. That way you can see it better. Show it to this one. That camera's a little better, it looks like. Can we switch to that? Oh, there we go. So you can see how the wire just fits right on there. And at the back, where I've bent it here, I'm going to grab our pliers. We're going to grab it right at the base, and we're going to just give it a couple good twists. There. And then use your cutters. And then we have our basic frame for our hand. Now I wouldn't put it in like this because it's just going to flop around. So the next step is to twist them together. If you have two sets of pliers, what you can do is grab the base with one set like this. There, let me see if I can get it. There we go. And then I grab the other one here and just give it a couple good twists. I guess probably about 5 or 6 half turns will give you a nice twisted finger form like that. You want to make sure it twists almost down to the base. You don't want to do halfway down. You want to make sure it starts twisting. That's why you grab it down here. The other way, if you only have one, let's see what I did with my nail. Hold on 1 second. What you can do, you can get like a safety pin or a piece of metal rod if you have one. Metal rod would be better, or a nail. Actually, let me see if I have a nail. Where did I put my nail? Oh, give me 1 second to grab a nail. You know what, I can't find my nails, so we'll do the safety pin. With the lighter wire, the safety pin will work. I probably wouldn't do it with a thicker. If you're using an 18 gauge, it's going to be a little thick. I'd probably bend the safety pin. But what you can do is if you're using one pair, you grab the base like this, put this through, and then close the safety pin so I don't stick myself, and then just twist. Same thing. You're basically using the safety pin as a key on the end. It's a little easier. Same thing, 5, 6, maybe a few more twists on that one, and you get the same thing. No proper safety pin out of there. Let me get that. So we're going to do that with all the fingers. Okay. So we want to do 2 of these. We want to make sure we do a pair. As much as possible, keep the pair the same. You know, same length, same as far as the fingers and everything, try to match up the palm size the same. Got a little bit twisting down there, but we'll fix that. And then what we end up with is that. We can clean these ends up a little bit if we want. If we want to crimp these a little bit or flatten them out, we can do that too. You don't want to pinch the point, the ends too tight, because you don't want to point, because if you make it real sharp or pinch it real hard, eventually it'll push through the foam and out of the end of the fingertip of the puppet. So you want to keep a loop, an open loop like that on the ends. This gives you something better to grab when you're bending the fingers, and it keeps it from pushing through. So I'm going to do the second one on the jig here, and it should be faster, but because I'm showing you and demonstrating it, it's probably going to take twice as long. Fact of life, right? But basically the same thing, you know, you can do this a lot quicker. Oops. Much faster way to do things, if you can, if you have the time to make one. Really helpful if you're knocking out a bunch of these too, to do it this way. But I'm going to do it with a pen because I'm lazy and don't feel like opening that pin. No, that's not going to work. So anyway, but same thing again. You know, you can twist it with your fingers if you want. But. Little outfield going on in the background there. 80s flashback. Yeah. Anyway, that's roughly what you end up with is a pair of hands, of hand wires. That's not the right one. This is. There we go. Now what we want to do next is we want to. Man, this one or that one? Which one? That one? Okay. We want to make the palm, and I usually make these out of rubber, out of this rubber right here. This is just a shoe rubber. You can use gasket rubber as well. You can use heavier leather. The reason we put a palm in, there's two reasons. One, it holds the shape of the hand. If you just try to glue this in there, in between your foam, what's going to happen over time is it's going to distort. Your hand's going to collapse, and you're going to get all kinds of weird just misshapeness to your hand. So when we cut a palm piece out, we're going to put it in there. We're going to punch little holes in it, and we're going to literally stitch this down to it. And let me see, there's that other hand, like we did here. And the other thing that does is it creates a real palm. So when the puppet's holding something, there's a flat part. There's something, there's some meat for the prop to set against. Versus some hands which have fingers all the way back, and there's no palm, and then you got the weird thing with the fingers wrapping all the way around. This actually gives you some meat to the puppet's hand, so everything it looks more natural, I think. So, what we want to do is...
Darlene is asking if you want to add nails later to the hands. Is there anything you should do to the wire armature?
No, does she mean like claws? If you mean like claws, like you want to put werewolf claws or fang, like something like that, then yeah, you can extend these farther out. You can make these longer so they point out, and you can pro-poxy them. You can model them in pro-poxy or FEMA or whatever you want to use, and you can actually glue them right onto the ends of these, which is great because then it gives you a nice structural point for the nail to attach to. If you're doing regular fingernails, I wouldn't attach them to the armature at all. I would just do them on the outside of the fleece and just double stick tape them down or hot glue them down on the back of the finger on the fabric itself. But yeah, if you want to attach something, you can extend these out farther. Just when you do your pattern piece, just mark your points farther out and give yourself enough length that you have to work with. And the thing with these is, we've tried all kinds of wire and everything. Over time, eventually wire's going to break, just from the constant bending and manipulating and opening and closing of the hands. So just be prepared eventually at some time in the future you will have to replace them. And if you do nails on the ends, like that motion, what that does is that locks down a certain point. Like if you pro-poxy onto it, that point right behind the nail becomes a real stress point because every time you grab and bend it, it's going to bend right there. So eventually those are going to snap off as well, so you'll have to replace them again. And you can't really fix this. It's just easier just to put a new one in. So always hang on to your patterns or your jig. And maybe generally what I do when I'm building a puppet, I always build one extra of everything. Basically, what I end up with when I build a puppet for a show, I have enough parts, replacement parts to fix most of the understructure. I don't do the cover, I don't finish it, but I have the parts because I'm making them. And it takes 5 minutes. I'll take the extra 5 minutes and have it ahead of time because that'll save me a lot of time later on in the future. So, but yeah, with your fingers, same thing. And if you want to do claws too, you could even make 2 complete sets of hands, that you could just take the hands off and change those out. It might be easier too. So, if I answered your question there. So what we'll do here is whatever shape you have for your hand, what you want to do is we're going to lay it down on here and we're going to trace this shape for our hand. Now we want to clean this up. It doesn't have to be so, actually this one can come straight across even. Organic, I guess that's the way I would say it. And then mark your front. Mark your front and your thumb, so that you know your thumb's over here, and that's your front. And let's cut that out. You know what? I'm going to label this just so I don't forget. This is the palm pattern. And that's rubber. So we'll get a rubber or leather or whatever you're using for your palm. You can even use the wood, the same wood we use for the mouth plate. You lose a little bit of flexibility using the wood What's nice with the rubber or the leather is you can pin through them. So if you have to rod a prop, like he's got to be holding something, you can actually push a pin all the way through, and the rubber makes a really good surface to lock that pin in and then push it right into your prop to hold that in. You can also wire through this too. If you have to wire a camera into his hand or something that's a little bulkier, you can pull wires off of that, run it right through the rubber, put a small split in the fleece in the back of the hand, twist your wire together, and then stitch that closed. And you have a great, weight amount of prop that's unobtrusive, doesn't require a bunch of pins or a lot of sewing, or a heavy rod or rig or anything. So that's a good option. Let me go ahead and cut these out. And we cut 2 of these out, one for each hand. Mark them as you draw them, and remember to, whoops, thumb. This is the, you want to flip it. I guess it really doesn't matter, but I like to do it right and left. And cut these out. I don't recommend using good Ginger scissors to cut rubber and plastic, but these have been dropped and have so many nicks and stuff that they're perfect for craft scissors. And I'm a lefty
Don't mind
cutting
me.
with right scissors.
I'm
so
still watching.
there's a lot of things wrong with me here.
And he'll still cut it better than I.
And I just get these weird calluses in my back of my thumb. That's all. Again, don't worry if they're not perfect. These are structural, they're internal, you're not going to see them. When we start worrying about detail and perfection or good habits like that, it's when it's stuff that's going to be exposed to camera, like eyes, fleece, stitching. Those are the areas that you really want to focus on being detail oriented about. This structural stuff is great. There's a lot of flexibility. There's an ability to not have to have every line exactly perfect. Even if you're a perfectionist, you can get through this point and then just focus on the stuff later on. So the stuff that the camera's going to see. Let's see. Since we're sewing through this, same thing with the needle. If you have a needle, it's going to take a little bit more effort to sew through this, just like the leather in the hand or on the mouth plate. If you can punch it, if you have a punch or an awl, I'm going to use my star punch again and cut my points out. But basically, you just want to make a line all the way around, a line of points all the way around this, and we're going to whip stitch this down all the way around. They don't have to be clean stitches. We're going to put barge cement or contact cement over both sides and cover all of this and then laminate it into the hand anyway. So it's mainly just to secure that frame to this piece. Again, don't worry about perfection. If your stitches aren't pretty, they don't have to be. Not a big deal. So. Okay. Perfect. Actually, that should time out just right. Yeah. If any of you have any questions, now is a great time to ask, because this is unfortunately, this is a time-consuming part. It takes a little bit to punch these and sew these pieces together. This is one of those areas where it just takes time. There's nothing you can do about it. But it's also a great time if you have questions you want to ask about any of this stuff. Go ahead and fire them off at me. Now's a great time for me to answer.
Catherine wants to know what is the best way to pull apart an understructure. She has some old puppets she wants to rebuild.
The what? Oh, to pull apart an understructure, like like what we're building, the foam parts of a puppet. Catherine, you say? Catherine, what I would suggest for that is look at the puppet and see what the understructure is. Do a visual inspection before you do anything. Find out how the puppet's put together. If it's foam and glue, hair dryer, pop it apart. Mark everything. Get in there with a marker and mark lines across where the seams connect on each of the pieces, so when you go to put it back together, you know how it goes together and everything lines up properly. If there are strips of boning sewn in, you're going to have to do some snipping and pulling the boning out. Mark those rings of the order of how they go in. The best thing you can do is take your camera phone, your phone with a camera, stick it up inside there and take pictures. Document everything so you know how to put it back together. What you'll find though is, generally most of these puppets are put together with thread and contact cement. So they end up being your friend. The hair dryer and a small pair of scissors are a great way to kind of tackle that. And that would be my recommendation. As far as removing skin, if you have to take fleece off or a covering, look for the most unobtrusive place to start. If you have to pull a head cover, like the skin of the head off of a puppet, start in the back. Pop the seam back in the back of the neck and in the back of the head, or if there's hair on it, flip the hair forward and split the seam there and peel it off from there so that you're not popping any major seams in the front of the puppet or where they'd be visible, and that'll give you access to the puppet inside.
What? The
Your
movie's sold out.
touchiest area is probably going to be where the mouth is and how that's attached, because these are usually glued down, or they're machine sewn, depending, or hand sewn. So that's one of the areas that if you can, pull all this forward, roll it all forward, and leave the mouth intact, and then look at everything from the back or from the inside, and that should give you enough access. On the body, also take note of how the arms are attached, and figure out what you want to do. The best thing you can do though is document it. Just document and mark everything on the inside. So that would be it. Great question though.
So BJ,
Yeah.
for the detachable arm rod,
Yeah.
what's the item you need for the socket?
The what?
The socket for it to fit in
Yes.
is what I'm assuming. That's
We'll go over that. It's fabric.
okay.
Those we make those out of canvas or out of leather, vinyl, whatever you happen to have. I like those to be flexible as well. You don't want anything hard. You don't want anything rigid because you want to be able to pin through it. Generally, what we'll do is we'll run a pin right through the center of this, get through the rod, through the flag in the center of the rod, and then it'll go right into the rubber in the back of the palm. So that really secures that on there. And I'll show that. I'll go over that. That'll be one of our next steps. Actually, is making those little channels. There's two ways to go about those. Sorry again, this is one of those things that just takes time. You just kind of have to do it. And I'm probably just going to do one and then let you guys finish them up. I'm going to move on to other things after I get this one done, so that we can continue on with this lesson.
And BJ, Bill wants to know, could you use wire instead of sewing the palm in?
Yes, absolutely. If you have jewelry wire, like or anything like a real thin wire, wire works great. Especially if you're not comfortable sewing, wire's totally fine. Don't use heavy wire. It's harder to work with, but yeah, definitely. I know in the craft stores and in Walmart and various stores like that, they sell that colored jewelry wire for making bracelets and necklaces. Is real fine and strong. That would be great. You could feed it through. Is that what it's called? Yeah. All right. The only reason I think I sew so much is because so much of the puppet's sewn anyway that the thread and the needle are always handy. They're always there. So, and we use pretty heavy thread. We use button thread or upholstery thread or quilting threads. So they're generally heavy duty, like Coates and Clark or just various other brands. They're thicker. I wouldn't I wouldn't use the wax threads because you want the glue to bond to it, and the wax threads, the glue won't necessarily stick because of the coating on it. But let's see. All right. So this is our So when you do these, you may need to finesse them a little bit. The wire, like this one, it doesn't quite fit in there perfectly. So just, you can work with your wire a little bit and bend it till it fits fairly nice. It'll give that more uniform shape. And I'm going to go ahead and stitch this one real quick. Pain stitching through these fingers sometimes because you get the thread looped over, and you can knot these every time if you want, or you can just, like I said, it doesn't have to be pretty. Whatever is easiest for you and quickest. You can double stitch it if you really want to make them secure. And on the fingers, when you get to the finger, let's see if I can show you on this one. I'm doubling these up. I'm making a little X on the thread each time. But when you get to the finger, you do one side, go around it, and go through the same hole on the other side, just so it doesn't shift around. So you get that little V before moving on to the next one. And then about every 5 or 6 stitches, give it a good tug on the thread and go ahead and feed it through and do a knot just to tie it off before you go on. Just in case something happens and something breaks, it won't unwind all the way through. Same on this one, there's that side, and then we'll go over to this side and do that little V. Oh, well, I don't care. Got a little knot in it there.
So, BJ?
Yeah.
Taylor's asking about using the plastic canvas that already has the holes in it for the palms.
Plastic canvas.
Yeah, you can buy it at craft stores, and it's basically a plastic.
Oh, yeah. The for needle, what are the needlepoint kind of stuff? Square. Yes, you can use that. If that's what you have access to. The only problem with that is after so much time, it starts to dry out and crack. So it depends on the life, the life of your puppet, how long you want to keep it, because the more you bend it, that stuff gets weak, and that plastic just naturally dries out after a while. We used to use that for eye screens and stuff too, and had a lot of problems, especially with UV, where eventually it just dries and cracks. But it's fine. I mean, if that's what you have access to and you have some, great. Yeah, go ahead and use that. If not, if you want to get into the rubber stuff too, you can go to any hardware store and get gasket rubber from the plumbing supply area, and they sell little squares of gasket rubber, about like 5 by 5 inches, for plumbing fixes, and it's usually cheap. It's usually less than $1 for a square, and it's red gasket rubber, and that'll work really well as well. The one thing when we build, we generally, everything we build, we kind of overbuild because these puppets need to last. Like that, the mouse back there, he's 8 years old. These are all newer puppets. Well, the Punch and Judy there is not. He's 20 years old. But I still have the first puppets I built in the 80s, and they're still usable. So, it's just one of those things. You want to really build things to last, and if you have the time initially, use the materials that are going to make them last. It's worth the investment or the effort up front. A lot of times, though, you may find yourself in a position where you don't have the time. You need a puppet built by tomorrow. Then you use whatever's around. That's the whole Kermit and cutting the green jacket up. It's what happened to be around. So let's see, almost done with this one, and I'm going to be too short to knot this.
Doggone it.
Yep. There we go. So I ended up a little bit short. I'll do another piece. But basically you can see what I'm doing here is I'm just really stitching this down around and getting a nice secure attachment. But it's not pretty. It doesn't have to be. It's just, it's strong enough to hold it on there, and then we'll put glue over the top and it'll really secure it. So, let me stitch off this last piece. I don't know if you guys are all working with or just following along right now. If you're actually working, I'm sorry if I'm rushing you on some of this. I do want to get more done. Just time-wise, on a puppet build, like if we're building a puppet for TV and film where we're really worried about seams and really worried about the likeness, on the average, we'll spend anywhere from 140 to 200 hours on one puppet. And that's pretty normal. That may not be one person too. A lot of times if we're in a rush, we'll have, when we did the Glee puppets, we had 12 people working. So, and everyone was assembly lining. It was the only way to get it done. So it's one of those things, like trying to fit a full puppet build into 12 hours is really tough. So I'm gonna do my best to give you all the points and then let you guys run with it, time-wise. You'll have some time in between each class to work on things, and then hopefully we'll get to see everyone's projects when we're done. So. Also for next week's class, fabric. We're going to be working the end of the class. The second part of it, we'll be working on uncovering these puppets. So if you haven't gotten your fabrics yet, whether you're covering it in fur or whether you're going to cover it in fleece or some other fabrics, whatever you want to use is up to you. There's no right or wrong fabric to use. So if you found something that you're like, wow, that would make a cool puppet, then get it. The one thing I would suggest is find fabrics that have at least a one direction stretch. They at least stretch either left or right or up or down. The best fabrics are ones that are four-way stretch because they're the most forgiving. But if you can find, there's fur, I've seen fur available now that'll stretch sideways, which is great. Up until 10 years ago, the only place to get stretchable fur was from National Fiber, from NFT, and that's all custom made and $30 a square foot or more, depending. It's very expensive. But now some of the fabric stores are carrying furs that I've seen that stretch, which is great because for puppets it's perfect. You can pull them over and it makes your patterning a lot simpler. But keep an eye out, keep that in mind. You will need your fabrics for next week's class. So we're gonna have a finished hand.
PJ, Pam wants to know, does the leather palm support, is it also the rod support?
The pocket for the rod will glue to that pad, yes. That is the structure for that. So, yes, that's what we'll adhere it to. And on this point right here, on this point, the end I left, generally what I'll do with this is just fold it. Actually, you know what? With this one, I want to do something a little different. Let me clip this one first. We'll fold it. We'll just fold it down, and then kind of pinch it right up against, just so it's not sticking out anywhere. So you get a nice clean line there. And then the next step, if you had the shoelaces on the supply list, we were talking about a pack of shoelaces. Grab one of your shoelaces. Any cord will work, but shoelaces are available everywhere. You can get them at a convenience store, so they're really handy to use. They already have anglets on the end. Aglets, I think that's what they're called. Anyway, aglet, yeah. So fold your shoelace in half, like this. We're gonna go to the center, right there, of the back of the hand, right here. We're going to push this through, and then we're going to feed that through like that. So it should look like this. Oh, top like that. And these should be even on the end if possible. And this is going to run through the entire arm, and this will also be how we secure the arm to the body. The reason I put this in, a lot of people just do foam. I like a shoelace on there because a lot of times what will happen on set, especially if you're working with props a lot, and puppets pulling, or if you've got an assistant doing your hands, they can really do a lot of, put a lot of pressure on that hand and pull away from the body. If it's just foam, eventually that foam's going to tear, and it's going to stretch out and distort. Where if you have some kind of a bone inside, whether it be string or a dowel rod or some kind of or rubber tubing, it gives you a support. So your arm's only going to go this far, and then it's going to pull the body of the puppet. So it's going to be more natural, but it's also going to make less wear and tear on the arm itself. So, all right. I hope everyone's doing well time-wise. I'm going to go ahead and move on to foam for the hands. Oh, actually, you know what? No, let me do the pocket first. So our arm rods need to fit into a pocket, and you can use a piece of fabric. This is canvas or duck cloth. Heavy muslin will work. You can also use your mouth plate material, your suede or felt. Felt, not so much on the felt, that may be a little too loose. Any leather, that thin suede you have, any kind of fabric that's fairly stiff is going to work for this. I'm going to use the canvas I have. The piece is we use a 4-inch wide piece. And you want at least a 4-inch by 6-inch piece. We're going to make 4 pockets basically. It's make 2, and then I have 2 extra that we put away. You don't need to. If you don't have that much fabric, you can just make the 2. And what we're going to do is draw, these are 1 inch. Let's see. These are 1 inch across here. And I don't know if you can see that. But we're going to mark them 1 inch across, and then we're going to put a 1/4 inch space in between. These lines are our stitch lines. We're going to stitch on these, and then we're going to cut these right down the middle into separate pockets. Sewing machine, if you have a sewing machine, fantastic. I would recommend a sewing machine just because you just do a whole bunch of these and put them away. It takes seconds that way. The other thing we can do is you can hand stitch. If you want to hand stitch these, you just stitch down through all of them. If you don't sew, you can glue them, but I would make them wider. I would probably mark your inch line, but I would leave a good 1/2 inch on each side to glue, and glue those together, or maybe even, actually, you know what I would probably do, if you're going to glue it, fold it this way and glue it, so that you still have a 1 inch pocket. Basically all you're creating are these 1 inch pockets. And you want to do 2 inches deep. So again, a 4-inch piece of fabric, fold it in half to get a 2 inch by 1 inch pocket for inside your arms. I'm going to go ahead and sew these on the machine real quick, and let me jump on and do that. If you want to start hand sewing some, go ahead and jump in and do that. As I said, I'm machine sewing strictly for the sake of time on my end. There's nothing wrong with hand sewing. If you don't have a sewing machine, don't think you need to rush out and you can't do this project without it. Hand sewing will be fine. sure your fabric or whatever you're making your pocket out of is fairly heavy. You don't want to use a real thin linen or cotton or anything like that. It's you want some hardiness to this as far as what you're pinning, what the rods are going in between. You don't want it just spinning in there and being real loose. Thread might be a little too thick. Also, don't worry about thread color. Don't worry about, whatever you have. Again, this is all internal, so you're never going to see this. Once it's sealed in the hand, it's in there for good. So.
Oh, stop it! I mean, it's bad enough that I.
I'm running thread that's too thick through this. Sorry, guys. Oh, yeah. Better. Alrighty, so there we have the sewn pockets. Fabrics, most of these fabrics ravel or they fray real bad. You can treat the edges with fray check. I'm not going to worry about it here because we're going to put contact cement over these anyway, so that's going to seal these from unraveling. And I'm actually thinking I'm going to do it before I cut them apart, just because I know this very thin amount of room in here. So just from experience, knowing it's going to come apart, it's easier to do that ahead of time. So I'll move this out of the way. All right, so what I've done is taken the fabric that I sewed on the machine and the little channels, and I put a coating of contact cement on and took a hairdryer to it, let it dry. I made sure my pockets fit, so I wanted to test that. And with the contact cement, you don't want to put too much on so it soaks through. You want to do light coat, hair dry, and then another coat. And that way you get a nice solid adhesion without it soaking all the way through the pocket. So now we want to cut our little pockets apart. You can leave more room in between them if you want to. don't feel locked into following my measurements here. We did this just because we needed to crank a bunch out and these left over, but this is what you end up with. These little pockets. Set that off to the side. So, let me get, okay. So now we're going to take our hands that we have, and we're going to glue our pockets right to them. Now remember where your thumb is. This is the, remember pick a right and a left. You want to know which one's the right and which one's the left, because we want to glue these pockets to the inside of the palm. We don't want them both on the same side. The main reason we want it on the inside is because we need that structure for props. If we have props that we're handling, we want the rod touching the prop and not the foam from the hand and then the rod on the other side. I mean the rubber. We want all of this, we want the metal from the rod contacting it first. It's just to make structurally it's stronger. Also, just from a control point of view, it pads the same side equally on both sides. So we want to do the inside. So since we're doing it this way, this is now our right hand. And what we're going to do is we're going to get the dual or barge and glue this up. And on this piece, remember what I said before, go ahead and glue over the thread. We want to go ahead and just get a nice coat of contact cement over this whole thing. This is going to give strength to the whole thing once it's inside. It's going to lock that thread in place as well. Hit it with a hair dryer or let it air dry. Go ahead and put another coat of glue on these, and then another coat on that as well. That. And this on these, you want to glue basically long enough to go the length of the palm. You don't need to glue past that. This piece, this tab that's left, is actually going to be rolled over around the foam and glued down to the foam. And then when we cover it with fleece, we're going to stitch to the back side of it. So we have a nice clean edge. So make sure you leave some excess on here and then just glue to the length of the, or width of the palm only. You don't need to glue past that. If you do, don't worry about it. We're going to glue it down later anyway, but it's just not necessary at this point. So, then we want to take our right hand and our glue, or our pocket, line it up right at the top edge. If it's a little over, you know, a 1/16 of an inch, that's fine. Just line it up and come right down next to the thumb. And then we want to press that down. And again, contact rules apply. The more pressure you put, the better the bond. You want this to be nice and strong and snug on here. So when we're done, I know you guys haven't made the rods yet, but I'm going to check this one anyway just to show you. So you get a nice snug fit for your arm connection. Alright, so go ahead and finish up with your second hand, unless you're just kind of following along here. The next step is whatever pattern you used for your wire, to trace your wire on, and mine is here somewhere. There it is. We're going to go ahead and cut out a foam. So whatever foam you have, whether it be your reticulated foam, or your polyfoam, or whatever fabric you're using, go ahead and trace out your hand patterns. Remember, you need 4. You need 2 per hand. Oh, sorry. Changing cameras on me. You need four hands per puppet. So you want 2 pieces for each. You want a front and a back. So go ahead and trace those out. Grab my marker. One thing to consider when tracing your foam, if you use a Sharpie or a marker, if you're covering your puppet with a light colored fabric, white or a light flesh tone, and you use a dark marker, it's going to show through. You're going to see your lines. So you want to use a light color, maybe a complementary color. If you're doing a yellow, if I do yellow skin, I use a yellow Sharpie. And then the other rule of thumb generally is whatever side you trace on, make that the inside of the, so if you're doing the body, then whatever lines you've traced, make sure the lines are on the inside of the body. That way there are no lines on the outside. That's the easiest way to deal with that. But there are a lot of times when you're in a hurry, you forget and use a red marker, and then you have a yellow puppet, and you put it on the outside, and then next thing you know, there's red lines showing through your puppet. So just something to consider. And I cut a lot of my puppets out with a bandsaw, the foam out with a bandsaw. If you're comfortable using power tools and you're okay and you have a bandsaw, it works great. And what's nice too is if you're cutting 4, you stack 4 pieces of foam up, you run a pin through all 4, and you cut them all out at the same time. So you get 4 exactly the same, and it saves a lot of time. If you're using scissors or a razor blade, especially the personas, one thing you want to keep in mind when you're cutting, I don't know how we can show this, try not to angle your blade when you cut. Try to cut straight up and down with it so that you get a nice square edge. You want your edge, and even that came out a little crooked, but you want as square an edge as you can get. And then if you're working around round corners, these blades are nice and sharp. You can actually kind of push them through. Just be careful with your fingers. I don't know how to show this to you. Let me see because the back pressure. But you can work around that corner and get a nice curve rather than trying to cut it with scissors and make it round and then cut in. And it's just an easier way to cut through it, so you get a nice clean cut. Again, just be careful with these. They're very sharp, but they work great. Another trick with the personas too, let me finish cutting this one out. You can kind of saw it to start it. And again, try to make a perpendicular cut. If you angle it or bevel it, you get, when you go to glue them together, you get just an uneven edge. So there's your hand. These blades, let me see where I get a good close-up. The metal they're made out of, they're stainless, but what you can do, and this is great for foam carving, which actually may follow up on another video later, is foam carving. You can bend these. You can actually contour them. So if you want to carve, say you need to trough something out or channel or come around an edge, you can put a bend in it, and you can actually scoop into the foam and get a really nice carving tool out of a razor blade. And they're great. Just if you need to thin foam out later on the arms, the wrists will do that. We'll thin some foam out, and that's basically all you have to do. One bad thing about this is when you drop these, they land on their backs face up. So be very, very conscious of setting these down. Set them into a piece of foam, so that they're face down, or flatten them back out, because it's really easy to forget they're there and set your hand down, and it's not a friendly cut, believe me. But anyway, another reason I like the personas. Sorry. All right, so you've cut your 2 hand pieces out. I'm jumping ahead a little bit here. And now you just basically want to line all this up. You may have to finesse your wires a little bit so that everything centers well. And basically, now we get into barging the hands together. So we're going to go ahead and barge, contact cement the hands. You want to coat both sides of your hand frame. All the wire and everything. Just go ahead and give it a good coat of glue. Again, leave this tab. You can leave this tab open or unglued right here. But all the rest of this needs to be, get a decent coat of glue on it. You don't want it shifting around inside the hand. Set that up there to dry. And then when I'm barging, using contact cement on foam, the brushes glob too much. The glue gets too thick. When you're using contact cement on foam, lighter is better. The least amount of glue you can put on there to work, the better off you are, because if you start to get too much and you squeeze the foam, it'll pinch to itself, it'll clump up, and you'll get a really deformed looking piece. You aren't going to get what you really want out of it. So what I'll generally do is use some scrap foam that I have and just cut a tab like this. And then instead of brushing, you stipple. You get a little bit of glue on like that, and then you just want to stipple the glue on. Again, you don't have to see a layer of glue on there. It doesn't need to be visible. It shouldn't be visible. If you see a layer, a brown or green layer on there from barge or weldwood, or a shiny clear layer, that's probably too much glue. And the same thing on the other side. And because we're doing light layers of glue, I'm going to do 2 light layers on each side.
I'm busy!
Again, real light.
What?
Can I borrow your charger?
But my phone's on charge right now.
I'll bring it back.
Not now. Can't you use Mommy's charger?
No, I don't want mommy's charger, and they don't work so well.
Great.
All right. Wait!
Go ahead and hit this with the dryer.
Hold on. We're doing a live stream at the moment. Hold on.
And then we want to go ahead and put it together. So you want to
No,
line
you're
your
not gonna
fingertips
break
up,
it.
line everything up the best you can.
It's a charging
eyeballing it,
station. I mean, look.
and set it down. And
Give it back when
until
you're
you put
done.
a lot of pressure.
No,
you have to
Elijah,
throw it
nah.
in. If it wasn't quite right, peel it back and line it up again.
Oh.
Once it's on there, we want to put our top piece on. And same thing, just kind of start from one side. Line up all the fingers so they match. And then pressure.
The doorknob's
And
broken.
contact cement. Get the pressure on there to bond everything.
Oh, wait, no, it's not. Oh, thank God, I thought it was broken.
We now have a hand. Yeah, give you a hand, thank you. It's the sound of one hand clapping. So there's two ways to finish this hand off for covering, and it depends on what you want to do with it. If you want to do some carving at this point, say you have a hand and you want bigger hand finger pads and thinner at the back, you can get in with the Persona blade and you can actually shave. Here, I'll shave some of this one. Like, you can get in here and you can actually shape this. You know, you can you can also trim it with scissors. You can use scissors and work the foam over with some scissors. You know, don't get too detail oriented or too specific, because you're going to cover this with fabric anyway. But you can see you can round it off like that. The other way, which is the preferred way that I like, and it actually seals the hand up a little more, is to get some more glue on your stipple brush and actually get in here and go around the edge with glue. You have to spread the fingers apart to do this. Just try not to go on the face of it, and just a real light layer of glue around the outer edge, around that flat. Just with the hairdryer. Once you get that tacky, and what I'll do is, let's see, where am I? Make sure I get in here. Take my finger from my other hand, and kind of push down in the center, and pinch this together. So you're pushing that center seam in a little bit and rolling the glued edges together. Same thing on this finger. You just kind of work your way all the way around the hand. And again, you don't need a lot of glue. That one light layer is enough, because you're going to cover all this with fabric anyway. I missed a few little spots there. But you can see, you get a nice round finger then, without having to do a lot of trimming or anything else. And do this bottom one a little bit better. So now we have a hand that's ready to be covered. And remember, this is your right hand. You want to make sure you mark this somewhere. Generally what we'll do is put a piece of tape on the thread, or you can even mark right onto this little tab, mark an R, just so you know which side's which. And that's pretty much it. You've got a fully posable puppet hand. So now try not to play with them too much while they're just foam covered because the metal can still push through. So you want to make sure you have it and set it off until you're ready to cover it. But that's pretty much it. And then the rods will go into the bottom in the pocket. This is the part I was talking about. We'll take this pocket now and pop the seam in a little bit on each side, and then we glue it around. Actually, let's do that right now. And then just kind of, same thing, kind of feed the foam down in there and pull the fabric over. And then same thing on the other side. That one got a little stuck on there. Pull that back. There we go. And then we have our seam for our rod, and that'll be hidden by the fabric that covers it, and that goes right in the bottom. So there we have it. So, and that's that. We do 2 of those. How are we doing time-wise? Okay. Okay, let me do the arms, then we'll build the arm tubes, and then the connecting joint, and then we'll call it on this, and talk about getting the patterns traced and stuff. So, the next step in getting our arm done then is making the actual arm tube. We have a pattern, and you guys again will get a copy of this. We'll email it out to you. There we go. The 1/2 inch foam, same thing. This is 3 inches wide. You can even just cut these yourself if you wanted to. It's just a 3-inch long cylinder. These arms are 10 inches long. I like that length. It makes the entire arm about 15 inches long from shoulder to tip of finger, which I think works really well with this size of puppet. If you start to go much longer, it looks wonky for a human type of character. However, if you're making an alien character or a creature or something of your own, arm length is up to you. The longer the arm, the more opportunity the puppet has to reach really high. Just remember you need longer rods, so your hand isn't coming in up in the frame all the time. So we'll go ahead and trace this out. It's literally 3 inches by 10 inches, and then I just cut this little S curve in, mainly because when we glue it together, it gives us a shoulder, a little bit of a shoulder angle. Instead of a flat tube, we get that little bit of a bend in there, and that's what gets mounted to the arm. So, all right, let's go ahead and we'll cut these out. Just a couple more thoughts too about foam. You guys were asking the differences in foam. One thing that a lot of people don't know is all of the open cell foams, like the reticulated foam and the poly foam, can be dyed. They don't have to be covered. If you want to use raw foam for something, you can use RIT dye, any kind of fabric dye, and it'll color the foam. I have a piece of red. You see, I have a piece of red here. This is cardinal red RIT dye, and that's just on foam, and you don't even need hot water. You can do this in a pot with warm water and RIT dye. Drop this foam in for about 5 minutes, and it comes out like this. It holds color really well. So if you have a puppet and you don't want to cover it, and you want to use this foam, you like the texture, you can dye this all kinds of colors. Poly foam, the cushion foam will dye too, but you need to get in, put some rubber gloves on, get in there, and you need to wring it out. You need to squeeze it, suck the dye in, wring it out, suck the dye in. You got to keep doing that to get the color to actually soak all the way through, because the pores are a lot smaller. It's a lot more dense. But it's great. It's a great texture. It's a great material. And if you need to knock a puppet out in a day, for something, it's a great way to go because you don't need to do any finish work on it. You can still glue fur or fabric to it if you want in patches, but it looks good on camera, and it works really well. I love it. You can also carve this too, which is great. You can carve detail into it. Anyway, and the other thing about this foam, and actually polyfoam too, foam yellows. UV light, ultraviolet, yellows foam. This is the inside piece of this foam. So you can see, just being exposed to the light, to UV for a little while, it goes from this to this in days. So it's something to take into consideration if you're using raw foam. Even if the foam's dyed a color, the UV light is going to change that color. So what we'll do, if we're going to use exposed foam like that, what we'll do a lot of times is put the foam out in the sun, and we'll actually let it dye, let it yellow out a little bit before we dye it, so we're getting a true color. That way we know it's not going to change much after it's done. So anyway, just thought. Cut this out.
BJ, Catherine was asking about putting talc on your hands to keep the glue from being sticky.
Yeah, you can use talc. You can use liquid gloves. You could use a lot of different things. I have a sensitivity to latex now, so I use nitrile gloves. I'm not using gloves today because I'm just being not real careful today, and I'm not using a lot of adhesive. But yes, if you're using a lot of glue, a lot of foam, a lot of fabric adhesive and paints and stuff, definitely. The little lanolin works really well too. Any kind of lanolin-based hand lotion will protect your hands too. So a good idea to keep your hands protected from that and keep the glue from sticking to it. The talc, the only thing I'd worry about talc is the talc itself will work itself into the foam, into the adhesive, and might gunk it up a little bit. So just use it sparingly, and just, be aware of it, that's all. Definitely a good point. Okay, let's cut these out.
Okay, look, I know what you mean.
Alright, so we've got our arm piece here. Get a new stipple sponge because my other one's getting kind of yucky. Go down both edges, both long sides. And again, you'll get these patterns, so you'll have these pieces if you want them.
Hey, BJ?
Yep.
Austin is asking if the UV light weakens the reticulated foam.
Yes, it does break it down. Not enough. Not like if you leave it out in the sun for a week, it's not gonna dissolve. It's not gonna break apart. It's gonna discolor it more than anything. Eventually, over time, yes, UV will break it down, but this foam in general will break down on its own. Some of the carved puppets we have are 20 years old and are made out of reticulated foam, and they're still holding together. The more you use them, the more they're exposed to sweat, any kind of acid or salt, and that kind of stuff. The more likely they are to start to dissolve, and they turn into what we call toast, where they literally eventually hit a point where they just start to crumble. But there are puppets, like I said, 20-year-old puppets that are still very usable and in good shape. So it's more exposure and use to the body acid, sweat and stuff like that than it is the actual UV. Not that I would ever use this for a long-term outdoor application, though, unless it's covered. If it's covered in vinyl or fleece, it'll last forever. I mean, it should be fine. So, all right. So here's our arm. Now we got our hand. Let's go ahead and lay our cord through the center. It doesn't have to be perfect. We can pull on it later. But we just want to make sure it's sandwiched in there. And then what we're going to do is we're going to fold this in half, just like this. And the same thing we do with the fingers. I'm going to use my finger to push down on the center, and I'm going to pinch the top. Now the reason I push is I don't want to crush the seam. I want to have the whole surface bond to itself in a flat, the flat section. So I'm kind of rolling it down and gluing it at the same time. There we go. And what you're going to find too is you're going to get a little bit of a curve. This just happens when you glue, and the way the foam compresses is that the rigidity you're adding with the foam forces it to stretch or push, so you get this curve, which is, I think, is fine. Keep that seam on the bottom, and then you get the nice shape of your arm. And that's pretty much your puppet arm. Now, a couple other things to consider, and these are a matter of personal taste or opinion, is how to connect the wrist. Some people will just glue this right to this and then cover it. I personally like to use a little bit of softer foam. The poly foam I showed you earlier, the real soft stuff. What I'll do is I'll cut a strip about a ½ inch wide like this, and I'll make a little ring in here. And I like that difference of foam in there, the density, because what this does is it gives it a better wrist movement. When I'm moving this, it's not moving the whole arm, it just moves right at that wrist. It lets it compress more than it would if it were just attached to this. So it actually creates more of a realistic wrist movement. And I like that better. I think it looks more natural with the puppet when it can actually do this, and it doesn't curve the whole thing every time the hand moves. So I just think that's more natural movement. So I'm going to go ahead and put this ring in there. And this one's just a little long. I think I cut these 3 inches long. Yeah, this one's 3 1/4, so, or 3 1/2. So we'll shorten this one to 3 inches.
No more microphone played either. Where you bloody hell?
And we're going to glue that right to this. So we want to go ahead and get some glue going on the end here, all the way around. And then the same on the hand. I'm going to kind of glue around the hand. Let that dry. And then on this too, we want to go ahead and put glue on opposite sides.
What should we do now, boss? I don't want to know.
So we'll start with matching the seam up. We'll go ahead and we have a good view there. Yep, the top camera. Okay. So we'll do this. We'll line this up on the bottom, and then basically just work this all the way around. Until we get to there, and pinch it together. And we want to make sure our hand's facing the right way, and then line that up. And same thing. And now we have a finished arm with a really nice wrist movement. How we doing? About time?
Yeah, about time.
Perfect.
About time. Let's go ahead and pull Tom Stewart up, since you didn't get to chat with him earlier.
I didn't. But,
Hi, Tom. Can you hear us?
hey, Tom. Oh, no audio.
Can you not hear me?
Oh, I got headphones.
I can hear you.
Headphones, sorry. Hello?
I even have a title.
You what? Oh, look at that. You're official. How are you, Tom?
Good, how are you?
I'm good. I know your name well from all the puppet websites and stuff, so it's nice nice to finally meet you in person.
Do I look more handsome in person than I do on a forum?
Absolutely.
But I probably sound Canadian, so
What?
makes up for it, I guess.
Yeah, I get the hat's not really a giveaway.
Yes. So you'll probably hear cars being run. It's my son
Oh,
doing
great.
a car
I
thing.
skipped on this
But
one.
yeah, I took. You primarily want to know why we took the course and stuff. Is that?
Yeah, just talking about your background, what your interest is.
Well, I build puppets on the side. I do I have a full-time job with a children's cancer camp,
Uh-huh.
and I first took it up as a serious thing when I was a little bit younger, and then it went into it not being able to pay the bills.
Yeah.
So I was kind of urged into finding other work, and through that I started kind of volunteering with other puppet troops and things like that, and learning different ways of skinning the cat.
Okay.
And I started a blog. I think Chris was telling me that that's where you've heard of me through Puppeteers Unite.
Yes, absolutely.
And then after that, oh, there you are. And then after that, when I started that, basically I started having more time to choose what I wanted to build and what projects I wanted to work for. And so I've been doing that for how long now? Like 7-8 years. Yeah, 7-8 years now. So
Wow.
yeah, and it's been a really cool ride to kind of see how other people build the little tricks of the trade.
Yeah.
And the guys you meet. I mean, because I'm building puppets for TV, I get to meet guys that are doing it full time, and you also meet guys like me that are only doing it part time or on a hobby type of basis.
Yep.
And it's really neat to hear how they build stuff, what things work, where they've heard how things work, or where they've seen stuff. I was telling Troy that your pocket method,
Would you look
I
at that?
actually
The movie's
learned
nearly
that for the
finished.
first time on this build.
And I
I
gotta go
built
pee.
a couple puppets for a TVO, which is a TV Ontario, for a children's show. And the guy there, Frank Meshkala, who used to work for the Muppets, and he does the voice for 2B, and all that stuff. Anyway, he was telling me about the pocket method, because I used to just braze copper onto piano wire.
Right.
And then one would fit, I'd just buy the bigger size, and one would fit in the other, and that would fit in the hand.
Right.
And it blew me away, because it was such an easier way to do it, and it didn't have me, brazing metal and trying to figure out sizes and all that stuff. So,
Yep.
yeah, it's just, I took it more just to see what, how you do things, and
hopefully pick up a couple pointers or things that I've never seen. And there's a lot of stuff that I was like, oh, cool, yeah. Oh, why is he doing that? Oh, okay, that's why he's doing it that way. So
Good.
um,
Yeah, it's everyone you meet has a different trick. I've learned so many things from so many different people, and that's what the way I look at this. This is, like I said, this is a foundation, and it's just you know, you can go off in any direction, and that's what it's for. You need to experiment and figure things out. So.
yeah, I was saying to Troy, I really like
let's find out.
the shape of the head of the pattern that you're giving us.
Uh-huh.
It's that's fantastic. It looks awesome, and it's something too where I was actually amazed that you're supplying that, because if you look around on the web, a lot of times the price you pay for this course actually would have paid just for that pattern.
Well,
So, and it helps me too, because I just had a newborn 2 days ago. Well, not me, but my wife had a newborn 2 days ago.
Congratulations.
And, yeah, thanks. And I was like, oh no, now I'm gonna have to like come up with a pattern and like start from scratch. And now that as soon as you said, oh, I have a pattern, I was like, oh, thank you. There's a puppet god looking upon me somewhere. I love it. So now I don't have to reinvent the wheel. So no, that's awesome.
Well, what I found is that there's so few people continuing to do what we do, and it's just because people don't know where to start. And just giving them direction is one thing, but I think if you give them the key elements, the foundation, the initial pattern and stuff to start with, that's a big step. I never had that. We had to work through things ourselves, and much like you sound like you've been doing the same thing. You kind of just figure it out, and it's great. And like with this pattern too, it's so basic. But once you get it, there's so much you can do with it to change it and make it your own. So, So.
No, I love it. It's awesome.
Good,
Thanks
thank you.
a lot. Anything else? No, I think that was it.
All right. Well, great.
Sorry, I'm sitting on the floor playing cards at the same time. So unprofessional. Yeah, I don't know why. I'm just
No worries. Well, thanks
a lot.
Thanks for signing on. I appreciate it, and it's nice again to finally meet you face to face. So.
Yep, nice seeing you.
Alrighty. Were we on to question and answers, or?
Yeah, let's take a look here. What do we have?
These are the ones I've written down. They want to know about the muffin.
Oh yeah, the muffin. Everybody wants to know about the muffin.
About the what?
The muffin. How does it work? The mechanism. And it's because it was puppeteered so amazingly well on the preview.
These are some of my favorite puppets. If you guys go on AmericanGreetings.com, the card company, we've been over the last 5-6 years, we've been doing greeting cards for them. And this came off of a Thanksgiving card, and it's still up there. You can check it out. But we built a whole Thanksgiving feast of puppets, and everything from the candles to the muffins to the turkey, the stuffing, everything was all puppets. And I love this mech. This is actually a Lumen Code mech, modified Lumen Code mech that I was talking about before. And it's a key ring down on the bottom, and you pull the key ring, and it pulls a little mouth plate in the top. So he talks like this. Hey guys. So I love the mech. It's really simple. It's birch ply. It's 1/8 inch birch ply. Inside a couple dowel rods and a spring, and that is the whole thing.
That's it. Yep, that's it. Oh, there's a delay on this monitor. Oh, that's weird.
This is just the simplicity. This is why I love puppets. This is just, again, hear me in my soapbox. I love creature effects, and I love animatronics and all that, but with puppets, there's a simplicity to everything. It's one of the few sides of this art form where you can use dowel rods and foam and string and build a character. He doesn't need blinking eyes and eyebrows and mechs and everything. It's like everything you need is literally a piece of foam, 2 dowel rods, piece of tubing, string, and a spring. Oh, and some Propoxy for the eyes. This has been a big thing for me lately, the last several years. I really like...
Hey Siri. Okay, I think Siri messed the camera up. I'm gonna have to stop the video, stream right here.